I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's agenda consists of some appointments to town committees where we've completed our interviews, and I'll talk about that more later. We're also going to set the water and sewer rates and stormwater fee rates. I'll talk a little bit about the town manager search, review by the capital planning committee, review of Westcom, which is our new proposed and soon to start up 911 911 dispatch center, and also some general business about block parties. Before we get going, that we'll just go through announcements. The only one I have is that next Tuesday, June 11th, is our annual town election, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Community House. We encourage all citizens to come out and vote. It is our town election. It's not anything else but a town election, but it is important. There's a lot of interesting, important things on the ballot. Other announcements? Tom?
Oh, go ahead. Just a general announcement that on June 4th will be the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which was the amendment that gave women the right to vote in this country. And so it's 100 years old. It's all started in a small group of women in, now I'm running up.
Saranac Lake or something.
What?
Was it Saranac Lake or something like that?
Yeah.
The name of it.
Well, it's Katie Stanton, Elizabeth Stanton, and Susan Anthony, and, but what was the name of that? Seneca Falls, New York, the Seneca Falls Assembly. It all started there. And 100 years later, we take it for granted that women can vote, own land, sign contracts, and congratulations. So this 4th of June, you should be in remembrance. So,
Thank you, Tom. Any other announcements this evening?
Just it's road construction season again. Some of the town's projects will be ramping up. We do postings on the website, but if you are on Facebook, we also use our Facebook page quite a bit for more up-to-the-minute stuff. So I would just encourage folks to like and follow the town's Facebook page to get updates. Dwight Road is going to be finished off here in the next few weeks, and including activating the lights and paving. And so that'll be disruptive. So make sure you check for schedules on that.
Thank you. Any others? At this point, we open the floor to residents' comments. If you have any comments, please raise your hand, be recognized. We ask that you come up and hold your comments to about 3 minutes. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in residents' comments? Yes, sir. Please come up and identify yourself.
My name is James Turtelot. I live at 64 Prinwood Road in Long Meadow. Tennessee Gas Pipeline Corporation and Columbia Gas of Massachusetts want to build an industrial facility consisting of several buildings and associated machinery on more than 2 acres in a residence zone. This is within 300 or 400 feet of abutting homeowners. If unopposed, they will radically increase their capacity to deliver high-pressure gas to areas north of Long Meadow. Tennessee wants to sell its glut of medically hazardous fracked gas to Columbia. Should that be next to your home or anyone's home? We can frustrate this scheme by voting yes on question 2 on the referendum on the town election on June 11th. The referendum question is not binding, but it gives the select board the power to bring the issue of what and whether to buy and how much to pay, and this would be brought to a town meeting where we would decide. Could these maleficent corporations get their way? We don't know, but maybe. We do know they cannot interfere with our right as a town to the process described in the referendum, which will take many months and could drive these companies to a different, less dangerous, and less noisome site. We're not alone in this fight. This flood of gas, the Attorney General has found to be unnecessary, is being opposed all over Massachusetts. Weymouth has held off Spectra Energy for 4 years. Out here, Kinder Morgan gave up in the face of determined opposition and declining markets. Within the last 2 months, Northampton and Holyoke have told this gas combine, no thanks. We should too. In the meantime, vote yes on referendum question 2. In fact, there's a great deal of importance to this election. The Select Board will be elected, certain members of the Select Board will be elected, and there will be a vote on the fields. So I would say only to all the people, please turn out for this election on June 11th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, sir. Steve.
Hello, Stephen Morantz, 117 Rugby Road. I'm here to thank the Select Board. First, I want to thank the Select Board and the Town Manager for their support for the Solar-Rise Springfield Long Meadow program. Right now, we're on track to actually install between 30 and 40 installations in our town. So I think that's pretty successful for our community. And now, moving on from the renewable to the non-renewable energy sector, I also want to thank the Select Board for putting this question 2 on the June 11th election ballot. This non-binding resolution helps educate Long Meadow residents about the industrial gas facility being proposed for a location in a Long Meadow residential neighborhood. 2 private entities, Long Meadow Country Club and Tennessee Gas, would like to see this money-making facility for both of them created with apparently no public discussion by them with Long Meadow citizens. Concerns such as, is this complex needed? Is this residential area the only place it can be sited? Where is the increased gas supply going as Long Meadow's needs are already adequately met? How much new infrastructure will be built? And how does that square with Long Meadow being a green energy community? These issues have not been addressed, and the Energy Facility Siting Board made significant note of this lack of communication after the March public hearing. As Tennessee Gas, at least through 2015, had, according to USA Today, the worst safety record in the business, and Columbia Gas's safety record statewide, at least in 2018 and 19, speaks for its sad self. I again thank the Select Board for this ballot resolution and urge Long Meadow residents to vote yes on question number 2. Your yes vote will encourage the Select Board to investigate alternatives to this potentially unsafe and unhealthy and increasingly unpopular project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morantz. Is there anybody else who, yes, Mr. Ryan?
Great to see you, everyone. My name is James Ryan, 117 Crescent Road. I'm speaking in favor of the upcoming ballot question 2 concerning a non-binding resolution that seeks to capture the wave of opposition against an impending natural gas metering station in our town. I'm here to state in no uncertain terms the critical importance of the resolution on Long Meadow's future. If it passes as a non-binding resolution, it costs the town nothing. If it fails, it will cost quite a lot, especially to our schools and to the children who attend them. The documented health risks of natural gas metering stations, ranging from unexpected leaks to routine pigging, when it comes to air and soil quality, are well known and should give us pause when we consider the proposed station's close proximity to Wolf Swamp Elementary. If the health of our students is not a compelling enough reason, we must consider the impacts of stations on property values, not only during the installation itself, but also in terms of safety issues down the line. As our schools, much like many other town services, are edging ever closer to the 2.5% property tax wall, now is certainly not the time to cut down on our main source of revenue. No matter how you look at it, opposing unnecessary expansion of already sufficient natural gas infrastructure is a no-brainer. As a concerned citizen, as a teacher, as a candidate for school committee who is dedicated to the well-being of our students, now and for generations to come, I am pleading with my fellow voters to consider the long-term health of our students and our schools, and vote yes on question 2. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Are there any other comments? Seeing no other citizens' comments, we're going to move to our next agenda item. Our next agenda item is to do interviews for candidates for committee openings, and we're going to take it in the order that it was given to us. So Mr. Greenberg, who's a candidate for reappointment to the Permanent Building Committee, if get him in, get him out. Don't take it personally, Peter.
That's all right.
I just want to make a comment while Mr. Greenberg's coming up, that the bylaws require that we complete our interviews for all positions before we make an appointments, and then wait at least 7 days. So I know we've been interviewing the last couple of meetings. There are people who we've interviewed for some of these same committees, but it's not until after we complete the interviews that we'll be able to make appointments for all of them, even the ones we interviewed previously. Later this meeting, we will be making appointments for those committees where we have completed our interviews. So, Peter, why don't you start, Mr. Greenberg, start and just let us know a little bit about yourself and the building committee, and those of us who don't know you.
My name is Peter Greenberg, and I've been involved with the Permanent Building Committee since its inception. I've been on town committees for the last 10 or 12 years, starting with Finance Committee, where I was chair for 2 years, and then I got involved with the School Building Committee, and we built this project here. And then after this project was completed, there was a task force that was put together, for looking at replacing the DPW, and I was involved right from the beginning of that. And then when it became a permanent committee or a subcommittee of the select board, I volunteered for that, and so I've kind of seen the whole thing. And the reason why I want to re-up is because I want to see the project through. And then we're also now working on, the town voted to fund a new senior center, so we're involved with that project also. I think that what I bring to the table is that, I've been doing this for a long time, and working with how these public projects work, and working with the contractors and the OPMs. I think it's important to have some consistency, and some prior knowledge of how the process works. And I think I along with some of the other folks on the committee right now, we bring that to the table, and I think that it's important to have that, so we're not relearning what we've already seen, and trying to make the best decisions going forward. So I humbly submit my name for renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Does anybody have any questions? Richard?
Not so much a question. Thank you for your service, Peter. I know, and you both know, you've been at it a long time, how valuable this committee is, and it's getting more valuable by the day. On the makeup of the committee, do you think it's properly sized at this point?
Well, I think, as far as I'm concerned, the more members we can have with different skill sets, I think it really gives us the ability to evaluate, situations as they come along, and and people that have a lot of experience. I mean, you're voting on 2 new people, and they bring some skill sets that the current committee doesn't have. And I think even they've been at our meetings, and they're asking different kinds of questions. So I think that if we could, the more people that we can get involved that bring the different skill sets, I think it's helpful, because we run into a lot of situations. I mean, we're running into a situation right now with the DPW, and and some of the issue we're having with with the culvert next to it. And so I think that, can we add more people? Maybe. I know that the charter commission had looked at possibly, looking at maybe combining some of the committees, into like a much larger building committee where maybe we would have subcommittees doing different projects. Is it feasible? Probably. I think one of the biggest problems is trying to get people to volunteer. So maybe if you give some of these committees, maybe like ours, more responsibility, maybe you could attract attract more people, and that would help, I think, because I think the way I look at it is that the town has this pool of money every single year to spend on capital projects, whether it's a DPW or something that the capital planning is looking at. And I think that the more eyes that are looking at some of these projects, I think that it's probably better off for, as a resident, I would feel better, going to a town meeting and saying, well, this committee of, whatever, how many people have looked at this, and they've gone ahead and they've vetted the project, and they feel this is the proper way for us to spend the money. So, circling back, is it, could we add more people? As long as those people are willing to work and bring skills that, improve our decision-making, yes, I would say so.
I think what I'm seeing, that the quality of the current staff is exceptional, and consequently, you've got a following, and new people are stepping up to the plate with unbelievable qualifications that want to serve with the committee. So it's sort of like success story is breeding more success. I'm just wondering about the vision of where you thought it would go, whether it's properly sized or not, or that was the reason for my general question.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the committee was first, when it was first formed, and our, what was our goal? And I think that it was kind of like a loose goal that was set forward by the select board, because, it was somewhat new as a committee. I think it's really up to the new select board to decide, where do you want us to go from here? I mean, I think it's important to have a strong residential group looking at these projects. And with all the talent, in town, then, if you can, I think it's never going to go away. And so I think that it's, the more attractive and the more impact we have as a committee, I think you'll continue to attract good people, and the projects will get done and done right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
Next, I'd like to call up Mr. Christopher Nolan, who's a candidate for reappointment to the Conservation Commission. Mr. Nolan here? He is not in tonight, okay. Council on Aging Board of Directors, I'm going to take them a couple at a time. Elizabeth Tyson and Eleanor Stoller. There's also two others afterwards, but we'll bring a couple of folks up.
I bring my own chair. I'm taking it home.
Then you just introduce yourselves.
Eleanor Stoller, Meadow Road.
Thank you.
I would like to continue the senior center.
Okay, and Ms. Tyson.
Elizabeth Tyson, 108 Maple Road.
Okay, do you have any comments beyond?
Well,
any comments beyond?
who else is better than seniors on the senior center? They're there every day. We know what we want, and we know what we need. And you've got to listen to us. That's our big problem. Not you personally. Nobody personally.
Are there any particular questions of these two candidates? I guess I'm just going to ask each of you in place of what role would you like the Council on Aging to play with respect to the final design, moving, whatever of the new adult center? So I'll start with you, Eleanor, and then.
Well, I think, like I said, I want it suitable for seniors. We don't know, well, we've seen pictures and everything, but so things are going to entice more seniors. And I talk now to people that are younger seniors, they're 55s and, close to 60, and they get a little, I invite them down, I tell them how great it is or something. And it should, and I think the seniors should have a little more say all the time with other things in town, especially if you've been there a long time. I mean, I've only been in town about 55 years or something, but who's counting? And I plan on staying. You know, and like I said, I'm never leaving, whether it's on top of the grass or under the grass. You know, I'm staying, and that's it.
Ms. Tyson, do you have any thoughts about?
Well, I have been a resident for 48 years, and I became a member of the Council on Aging in 2012. I am now the secretary, and nobody seems to want that job.
She does
But,
a good job.
It's very exciting now, I think. Everybody is so pleased with this new center, and I think that we have given a lot of ideas of what we really need and what we would like to see happen. So I'm hoping that we'll get more people, more younger seniors coming, and I think that will happen once we get the spade in the ground.
Great. Thank you both very much. If there are no questions, we'd like to just call up Marilyn Hurst. I don't know, is Phil Hallahan? Oh. Yeah, there he is. I'm standing right up.
It's fine.
You just introduce yourselves and
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Marilyn Hurst, 212 Prenwood Road. I've been on the council for many years, serving as chair twice, vice chair, and not secretary. Ellie is just terrific. And I would like to continue. It's been very exciting in the last few years, working on getting a new center, which we desperately need. And we're hoping, as far as the younger group, the 55 and older, are right now, we, with our new, fairly new director, are presenting programs that will appeal to them. And they're coming out very well. And not only in the afternoons, but in the early evenings. So I'm looking forward to seeing that grow, and especially get more people to come, because we're almost 25% of the voting population of Long Meadow. And we don't see that many coming. So we hope with all the plans that we've worked hard so far. And I just would love to continue it on it.
Thank you. Phil?
My name is Phil Hallahan. I live at 74 Eton Road. I've lived here for about 40 years. 6 years ago, the Council on Aging Board of Directors target was suitable space and a suitable facility. Today, the goal is effective and efficient programs and services. I would like to continue to be a member of this team. Thank you.
Okay, and does anybody have any questions?
I just noticed it's unusual. There are actually 7 positions expiring at the same time.
Because there's 21 people on the Council on Aging.
Oh, no,
15.
But there's 21 spots.
There are?
Yeah, there's a lot, yeah. It's a third, a third, and a third. There's a lot of vacancies on the COA. Yeah, so there always have been. That's my reading of it, though. The only, if you have any comments about what role you'd like to see the Council on Aging play in the ongoing, continuing issue of completing construction, moving into the new adult center. If you have any comments, please let us know.
Well, I would hope that we would be consulted on what each room, the square footage has been determined, the layout has been determined, working with the director and with our board, that we would have input as to what square footage, what the return on investment per square foot will be, so that we can get all ages in the community, from 55 and up during the daytime, and 55 and younger in the evening. We have a beautiful asset that is going to be coming online that can be used, not 24 hours a day, but it can be used for many, many functions.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Appreciate you coming. I'd like to call up first of our people applying for reappointment to the Cultural Council, Elizabeth Woods. And we also have Roland Hawthorne and Caitlin Cronin, but I think we can only take a couple at a time, so Ms. Woods to start, and then we'll get the other two folks in a second. If you could just,
Elizabeth Woods at 114 Prinwood Road. I think a lot of Prinwood Roads have been here tonight.
who's watching
I want
this?
to renew for a 3-year term, and I've just finished the last 3 years. I'm secretary of the Council on Aging. I'm in the Cultural Council. We have 8 members right now.
right, anybody have any questions of Ms. Woods?
Just a comment, you have an extra $1,000 in your budget this year, so check and see.
That's awesome. That's wonderful.
Because I'm really
Yeah,
excited about the things you've been
Last
doing.
year, we gave out a total of 5,756. So,
I thought you were going to ask her, what are you going to do with the extra?
Oh, no, I'm sure they have a whole list of projects they want to get done.
I point out to people at home that the primary cost of the source of the funding is there's some state funding too.
is
Yes,
from the
state
Mass
funding.
Mass
Cultural
Cultural
Council, but we had 23 requests, so we could only approve 14 with the money that we had, so.
Hopefully we'll do better
It's
next
hard
year.
decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. And if Roland Hawthorne or Caitlin Corden?
Yeah, wait a minute, Mark.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Well,
Rich.
what type of requests weren't funded?
They are, they can go from having things happen in the high school to programs being put on at First Church, singing and different musical programs. The Historical Society requests, the Council on Aging requests.
Have you checked with community preservation people to see if any of those programs would be eligible for funding with our community preservation dollars?
It's on the website, and they, anybody in town can apply, and we get a lot of applications from different towns, because some artisans applied to like 12 councils just to see who would give them money. So we try to only have things that are in Long Meadow,
Right.
taking part in Long Meadow.
I'm more concerned about the projects you're turning down. Have you actually met with the community preservation
We have
folks?
none.
Okay. I'm going to take a note on that and
All right.
see. I'm not sure if there's an avenue, but if you have that many projects that are not being funded, certainly seems like we should look for a revenue stream to fund more of them.
That would be wonderful.
I know
But-
Marie has been very strongly in support of your activities.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
the
you.
whole board voted for it.
Yeah, but I mean, you've been an advocate for it.
Yeah, some wonderful programs you're doing.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, now I'll call up Roland Hawthorne and Caitlin Cronin.
Shall we come together?
Sure. You just state your name, your address, and why you're applying to be a member of the Cultural Council.
My name's Caitlin Cronin from 206 Colony Road, and as I said in my application, I'm phasing out of a decade plus of pretty intense involvement with my children's schools, from preschool through the end of high school. A lot of it in the arts, specifically with Long Meadow music, from Blueberry to Williams to here at the high school. Also finishing up about 10 years on leave with Grants Committee and deciding to do something, if possible, more townwide, and looking to step out of the education realm into a wider town role.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hawthorne.
I'm Roland Hawthorne. I've been in Long Meadow for 4 years. I live at 33 Chandler Avenue, right behind the spa. When I moved here, I moved with my daughter and her family, and she lives at 250 Long Meadow, 259 Long Meadow. It's on the corner of Long Meadow and Ellington. I saw an article in the Long Meadow News about the Arts Council, and Peg Landon is a very good friend of mine, and I talked to her about it, and she said that she thought I might be helpful. Some years ago, I was in Denver, Colorado for a number of years, And I was president of the Metro Denver Executives Club, younger executives that were looking to get involved with cultural activities in the city of Denver. We were involved in fundraising and just promoting the museums and the art galleries and festivals that were going on, and trying to get people to come out to them, getting the members of the committee to and the organization itself to come out and bring their wives, and we'd have parties and that sort of thing to entice them to come see the exhibits, and they would spread the news. Peg asked me to attend one of the board meetings, and I did, and looked like a group that I could have a good fit with, and so I guess there's some openings available, and I thought I'd like to participate.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of these applicants?
No, I just thank you both for stepping up to serve. We need people serving in the community, especially, people with your credentials and interests.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
So I'm going to ask that we, next people come up are people interviewing for the Historic District Commission, just two at a time. John Robbins, who's looking for reappointment, and Marcy Kearing. And while they're coming up, just remind people that appointments for these positions will not be done until our next meeting. You could just introduce yourselves and start with you, Ms. Kearing.
My name is Marcy Kearing. I'm at 960 Long Meadow Street. I served on the Historic District Commission many years ago with John, and have been out of it for a while. And I left mainly because I was busy with work and kids, and that has slowed down quite a bit for me, though I'm still working, but my kids are grown and out of the house. So would just like to be active in the Historic District Commission again. I live one house outside of the Historic District Commission, so I just find it important to preserve the integrity of the green, and I see a lot of activity with houses being bought and sold recently, and I want to make sure that the bylaws are enforced properly.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins.
John Robbins, 1028 Long Meadow Street. I served on the Historic District Commission for 9 years, 2 in my current term, and then 7 before, including a number of years as chairman. I grew up in town. I left for California, and I said, Long Meadow's better, so I came back here. I've lived in a number of historic houses, and my current house wasn't in the district, so I said, I got to get it in the district. So I got my house, along with a number of other houses, worked with a number of people to get it back, get it into the district to protect it. I'm very concerned that, we have this beautiful green, beautiful historic district. It's important that we have active members who are going to make sure that it stays that way.
Both of you, what's your feelings on the Young Estate?
I'm very encouraged by what I see. I'm sad that it couldn't be a family residence, but I didn't see that happening in the near future, and I feel like history is being preserved there. I trust the people that are doing it. There's a lot of different types of housing on the green. There's the spa on the green. There's Bay Path housing on the green. So I think, this was new to the town and hard to accept, but I'm happy to see what's happening.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. I knew the Youngs. I remember sitting in the back kitchen and having milkshakes and looking at the rose terraces. So it's hard for me to adjust to having it as an office building. I always think of it as a house, and I would have preferred to keep it as a house. But I think they're doing the best they can to try to preserve the property.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any? I just have a question. I guess, Mr. Robbins, because you're an incumbent, you can answer it perhaps better. But one of the issues that we hear about the Historic District Commission is the swimming pool issue. And I was just wondering if you could just comment about that a little bit and where that concern, and I'm not asking an opinion so much as I am what is the issue more, better explained to us than we can read through biased emails?
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's some swimming pools in the district, but our bylaw said you can't have swimming pools. And so we reached out to the community, had a public meeting with historic district residents, and the decision was made to allow swimming pools, so we changed our bylaws to allow swimming pools.
So is it a done issue now as far as the...
As far as I'm concerned, the application would come in just as a normal application, but it wouldn't be excluded just because it's a swimming pool.
I'm just wondering if it was... Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Explained it a little bit better. Anybody else?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, not related to that, is Marcy mentioned that there's new people moving into houses. So one of the things that I wanted to work on is getting a new member kit. So when someone moves into town, we send them a kit, tell them about the historic district, hopefully meet with them one-on-one, explain it, ask any questions, try to get them to understand what we're doing and work together rather than getting surprises.
Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. I'd like to just call up the next two candidates for appointment to the Historic District Commission, Ryan Shanks and Jonathan Jordan, if you're here and like to come up. Sweet. Just introduce yourselves and...
Ryan Shanks, 690 Long Meadow Street. So I am very new to the historic part of Long Meadow. And frankly, I want to get involved. There was a barn that was allowed to be demolished off of Ely that is actually the original barn to the home that we purchased. Our home is 298 years old. And I had reached out to some of the members and said, I think there's a way that the residents within this area could preserve it. And frankly, I was exploring whether we could relocate it to our property. Some of the neighbors in the area offered to help the cost, and it was allowed to be demolished. So frankly, I want to get involved to try to, you talk about sort of a new family kit. I guess applying for this is sort of my new family kit to the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, Jonathan Jordan. I actually grew up in town, went to the little school before it became a private residence, and center school before it became one building, and Williams and LHS before, actually, while this was still the open space. So kind of the old part of town's in my blood, I guess you could say. But I'm a new resident back as a homeowner. I live at 756 Long Meadow Street, the David White House, pretty firmly anchored in the historic district. And I was looking to get involved after being stationed down south for a while with some sort of community service, and spoke with David Lamb. I actually abut that property, the Brewery Young, and he recommended I come out for the HDC. I have a background in American history and a passion for preserving what we have in this town and in New England, particularly the green. I feel pretty strongly about preserving certainly the charm, but I also think that I could bring a fresh perspective. Maybe it's not generational so much at this point, but fresh set of eyes, fresh ideas, because preservation is very important, but I think kind of with a rigid flexibility approach to things. We have new homeowners moving in like us, and there are different needs, but those needs have to be met within the charm and the confines, essentially, of what we want to preserve here.
Thank you.
I actually hadn't realized you're in the historic district now, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved
You know
in
that
last
barn
July.
back there, when I was a kid, there was a basketball net in there. We used to play basketball.
Yeah.
It's too bad it's gone.
It is too bad. Yeah, I would just like to, I'm encouraged that you're trying to be on the commission, Ryan, because I think when people have a situation where they notice something went wrong and then they go to join a committee, I'm encouraged by that, and I'd like to encourage you. I'm glad you're trying out. So thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, what's your views? The upkeep and care of the homes on the green is a tremendous burden that's placed on homeowners. There's no doubt about it. If you've ever owned an historic home, they are truly a money pit. And I think eventually it'll get beyond a person's budget. If given, I know Ryan, I've had experience with you on with the DPW, and then you are a different breed of individual for reaching out to people and doing fundraising and just looking for opportunities and being able to make things happen and things to explode and become reality. Have you given any thought to the future of the green? I mean, we can see cases now where some of the homes are getting not bad shape, but they need repair, they need maintenance, and it's a tremendous burden being placed on people. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. We walk, my wife and I walk the green often with the dog, and we're just sort of looking and, admiring the old homes. It's incredible how beautiful they are. And there are some that need a little extra love. I've also thought about just sort of the green itself. Is it really maintained at a standard that it should be for its historic significance? And so I just think that there could be a way that we as a group that live within that region of the town can figure out some creative way. I don't know if it's necessarily that we pay more, but I think we could create some ways of really preserving it. In terms of the homes, I think there needs to be sort of a standard of care. Maybe there's some sort of a standard of care kit or something that you just try to maintain. And then also, frankly, as people are coming in and looking to buy, I think realtors should be empowered to really educate the buyer around the significance of future investments in that home. It's not just the mortgage on it, it's the ongoing annual maintenance. So I do have a ton of ideas.
Marie?
I'm glad to hear you talk about that, because I feel the historic district is the green also, is the streets around the houses. So I'd like you to be able to look at a broader look on where we are going in the future with the whole green. So that's an exciting perspective. Thank you for your service and offering to come in and join our community and volunteers. Thank you.
When did you move?
July 30th last year.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Hey, any other questions? Thank you both very much. I'd like to call up Margaret Rakis, who's a candidate for being reappointed to the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Hi, I'm Margaret Rakis, and I live at 67 Shadyside Drive. And I have been on the park board for 2 terms, 6 years.
Does anybody have any?
I would just say, during the town meeting, talking about Wolf Swamp Schools, the subject of baseball diamonds came up. Why are there so many baseball diamonds in town that they say are unplayable?
I'm not really sure about the answer to that. We have had, in my 6 years on the board, we have had various youth sports organizations coming to us asking for our guidance or our help in improving playing fields such as softball, girls softball. Long Meadow Soccer Association came to us and said several times and said we've got to do something about either more fields or improving the fields, and so we worked on the Wolf Swamp plan. Lacrosse came to us and said we really need a place for the kids to practice, and we said, well, we'll support a ball wall. We can't give you money, but we can certainly help with siting and that sort of thing. In 6 years, and I asked Barry Jarvis about this because I've missed like 1 or 2 meetings out of the 6 years, and I thought maybe there was some meeting that I missed that someone from baseball came and talked about the need to improve fields. And I said, am I missing something? She said, no, you haven't missed a meeting where someone from baseball has come and asked for improvements. However, we do recognize that certain fields, whether they're the Glenbrook field that's mostly used for softball but sometimes used for soccer, and some other baseball fields, we have been in contact with members of both the baseball organizations about how we might improve the fields. Those discussions have been going on for some time. Also T-ball. We've talked about improving Bliss, and we've even started to improve some of these fields. So I'm just really not sure where that question came from. I do think, field maintenance, whether you're talking Wolf Swamp, Glenbrook, Stropel, we do depend on our volunteers for a good bit of whatever they can offer. Softball parents have been really into showing up at the fields, working the fields. DPW does a great job, but I think they're spread rather thin.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for coming in. I'd like to call up Jeffrey Welsh, who's a current associate member of the Recycling Commission. Appointment.
Good evening, Jeff Welch, 19 Allen Road.
Yes, and can you just, a little bit about the Recycling Commission and...
Yeah, I've been a town resident for less than 1 year. I've been on the commission for about 6 months. It's gone really well, learned a lot, and just looking to get a full spot on the commission.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I just want to ask if you're familiar with, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to give a pitch for the 35-gallon trash barrels. Do you know anything about that?
Familiar with it, and I think it offers consistency to all the residents, to our vendor. I think it's overall a good thing, because I know there were a lot of issues with kind of different barrels, different ways of getting trash to get picked up. So it's a good thing.
My other question is that, are there any other new initiatives from the Recycling Commission that the residents are likely to see in the next couple of years?
Well, I know there's going to be a plastic bag ban coming into effect over the summer. That's extremely important. I think another thing is just telling our story, how important recycling is. So those are two things right there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Welsh, thank you very much for coming by. And Alexander Berry, who's a candidate for appointment to the Tree Committee.
My name's Alexander Berry. Sorry for my bronchitis. I'm at Colony Road, and was interested in going forward on trying to apply for the Tree Committee.
Have you spoken to Dave Marinelli?
Actually, no. Well, yes, the new warden.
Yes, the new tree warden.
I met him at the Long Meadow days.
Oh, okay.
He's a very enthusiastic man.
So you know what you're signing up for.
He has lots of ideas. I'd been talking to friends, Peter Greenberg, some other people in town, just trying to find out if I could be more involved. I've lived here for about 12 years and have frequently walked through Bliss Park with my dog, and I've seen that go through a number of tree-related issues over large-scale storms, lots of things falling down, lots of things regrowing. And then you realize that the trees are a part of Long Meadow.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Berry? And thank you very much for coming. Again, we'll be making appointments next week. I just want to make sure there's nobody else here for an interview that we've missed. I think we have the list. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you coming in. Right. The next item on our agenda is town manager's report. So, Stephen, do you have a town manager's report?
So, a few items on the town manager's report. Somewhat amazingly, we did have a flood in one of the labs, a second floor science lab here in LHS. Trying to figure out what happened. It is a part of the new wing of the school. So they looked at the fittings, and what happened there was not human error, like someone left the sink going. There was a failure and blew out. That had the net effect of ruining the cabinet, mostly lower cabinetry in that room, and then uppers and lowers down below. We're working with Maya on, obviously the cleanup has happened, and we're working with Maya on the repairs. Obviously they're unusable for the remainder of the school year, but our goal is to have them back online at the start of the next school year.
Is there funding, Stephen, for that? Obviously we applied to our insurance carrier, but we have a huge deductible, I assume.
I don't know.
5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 is deductible, so that would come out of our facilities maintenance budget.
Okay. And the damage is probably going to be more than that.
Oh, yeah. In fact, we reached out to our former OPM for the high school project, and remember Tom Murphy. And actually very generously agreed to kind of go back and look at the archived file for this project and find out who made the cabinets, so we can reach back out to them and order, the same that we had. So Mario's been kind of handling that part of the process, but just want to let you know that it happened. It's just a quick on the DPW project. The tree work in the dingle is largely done. I didn't really hear much about it as it was going on, which everyone here should take as a good sign that everything went well, because if there was a problem, I would have found out about it. So that aspect of the project went well. They've actually got some large drainage structures installed, and actual work of starting to build the building is underway, which is good. Similarly, the landfill capping, we had kind of an initial kickoff meeting with DEP. We're working with our engineer, Ty and Bond, to develop the specifications so we can go out to bid as fast as possible and be ready for July 1st, when our appropriation from town meeting will be available, and that work will start as soon as possible.
Can I just ask a quick question, Stephen? Sure. Are we capping it with a eye to, sloping it south or doing anything that?
Yeah,
so
that's
all part of the spec.
Yeah, and it's 2 phases. Just to remind everybody, this phase is really over the impacted areas where the soils from Dwight Road went, and it's an engineered barrier. Phase 2, which will need another appropriation from town meeting, is a vegetative barrier on the other undisturbed areas. I mean, they'll be disturbed because they're going to be removing trees that have grown over the last 30-something years, but that's more of a vegetative barrier.
45 years?
Yes, it closed in the 80s, but they did cap it, I think. Maybe it was in the 80s that they put the original vegetative barrier. So that's going to be phase 2 of that. Like I said, we'll need appropriation from town meeting. We did install additional silt fencing, because we did note that temporary cap that was put on did have some erosion because of all the rains in springtime. So the contractor put additional silt fencing around to kind of protect those areas. And like I said, we hope to be out there as soon as possible with the permanent cap project. We talked about the adult center. We have gone through the bidding process. I sent the bid tabs to the board. The good news is, I think we had 2 bidders who were able to build the entire building with the bid alternates at or under budget. The lower bidder is also the general contractor for the Long Meadow DPW. There are some things we're kind of sorting out on that project that may or may not inform our decision-making on the award of the senior center. But it's very positive news. We do need to come to a resolution in the next week or so, and once we have made the selection and awarded the general contract, we will then schedule the groundbreaking, which I know people really want to see. So I would expect to see something like that in late June, early July, groundbreaking there. We also are working with, obviously, Barry Jarvis to make sure that the start of construction activities aren't that disruptive to camps and the use of the pool. We have, as you know, we have contingency plans to make sure that we leave space and pathways for that to happen. But at the very beginning, we want to make sure that we have it, under control from the jump.
Do we have a timing obligation for awarding that contract?
30 days. And it was a week or so ago.
I had a question, because when you mentioned it's the same contractor, I started getting shivers and everything, because there's a tennis court where this building is going. Do we have any worry of anything being found?
No,
we don't have any worry because we know.
Yeah, no, they did do core samples. We did do a comprehensive asbestos assessment of the site.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we do know that there's asbestos there, that the court contains it. And before anybody asks, we did ask if we could bring the ACM from this project to the landfill, and DEP is not going to allow us to do that, which is understandable. It's much more concentrated in the form it's at. It's transite, paneling on the sides of buildings and a little bit of tennis court. It's not blended in with, thousands of cubic yards of soil like the DPW stuff is.
Okay.
So, yeah, we did go through all of that.
Okay.
On Dwight Road, I did mention in the announcements that people should pay attention to the town's Facebook page for Dwight Road. They've been pulling wires to the signals. Those should be coming online any day, the new traffic signals. I I'll commend the board, the standard that the board selected for the mast arm. It looks really good out there. In fact, when you're driving north on Dwight Road, it almost looks like an archway over the road. It's hard to see because there's 35 traffic signal heads out there between the temporary ones and the new ones, but once all that's cleared out, it's going to look like a really nice gateway to the community. And so those will be operable soon. There's going to be some milling that needs to be done at edge of pavement, and then there's going to be structures that'll need to be raised in advance of the final paving. And when that all gets going, which like I said, will be in the next week or two, drivers will be well served to avoid Dwight Road to the greatest extent possible. And especially the day we pave, it's going to be, if you remember when we did binder coat last year, it was a pretty heavy traffic day. But we'll be getting as much notification as we possibly can.
We had a detour around the area at
Right.
that time. Is there any thought of doing that again?
I'm sure we will. I don't know if the traffic management plan has been, to some extent, it depends on schedule. If we get bad weather, and we're going to have bad weather Wednesday, and things get pushed out, I mean, it will probably be after the end of school. And that, as you guys know, the traffic volume goes down significantly once the school year is done. Well, I shouldn't say significantly, noticeably. And so we're kind of hoping that paving doesn't happen until after school year ends, but right now we're at the mercy of the paving companies because we had so much rain. All the other jobs that were ready for pavement a month ago are getting done now, and so there's a domino effect. We went through this last year on paving projects. Last summer it was really wet. We had delays. We were kind of up against the end of the schedule. So that's one of the reasons why it's going to get paved when the pavers are ready to pave it. So. But that is coming together well, and like I said, I would say by the end of June it'll be 100% all put together, and it's going to look great.
So you're saying the contractor's telling us about 30, barring bad, a month of rain.
Yeah.
They're expecting 30 days, and it's the end of June.
Yes, if that. They also are, actually, I did receive it after I wrote the report. They did, Gomes installed the raised crosswalk. They installed both of them. They did prepare an estimate on reducing it, softening it, as we've talked about, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the agenda item, but I do have that estimate. And then streetlights, Paul has been taking the lead on that. We're working with Real Term. We did get approval from the green communities to spend the rest of our grant on the design. Then the other, whatever's left over will be funded by the town meeting appropriation, and then we'll move on to negotiations with Eversource. He and I just have to get together and look at, we were given kind of an option A, option B with Real Term in terms of their design contract, and we just have to select an option and give them notice to proceed.
I guess I have a question, I don't know, just for folks on the select board, Paul, I sat down with Paul Pasterzik a couple of weeks ago or something like that, to try to make some sense out of the Real Term GIS analysis of it, and we came up with a series of questions. And have you gotten any response from them?
The only response I got, and I think I sent it to you, was in regard to trying to get those maps produced, which did not work for us. I did speak with them today. We did not have the conversation about those other spreadsheets that we looked for, but I do have to get back to them, and I can ask them what the status is on those spreadsheets, and there might be one or two other items that we had on our list.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking that, and the reason is that I'm just wondering if we are going to consider executing what was our plan, is separating the audit from the bid and see if there are other bids, and if anybody can ever make sense out of what Real Term did for an audit to actually offer us a bid on it based on that.
Real Term specializes in turnkey things. When you sign up with them and they take you through the process one step at a time. We try to take an approach of, doing it, I'd say piecemeal, but getting to one phase of work and then seeing where we were. Obviously, that's not the way they want to do it. They want to sign me up for the whole thing. And we've discussed this, learning what I have learned through this process about turnkey versus one step at a time. I'm of the opinion now that even though I'll be candid and say I haven't loved the experience we've had with Real Term, I think the town is much better served to just let them do their thing because they specialize in this, and just go turn the key now. Now that we've got through the audit process and seen how complex it is, just Real Term, I mean, they've done this a lot. They were well recommended. Like I said, we've had kind of a bumpy start with them, but I know many other communities have worked with them well, and I think part of it is, I think we tried to manage the contract in a way that it isn't accustomed to being managed. So I would just say, let's just let them run and go with it.
There's a interesting, there's a news report about the city of Chicopee just completing their total build-out of LED lights. Now they have, I think, a municipal lighting system. It's a little bit different, but they didn't do it themselves either. I just wondering if we might reach out to them and find out how they did it and learn from their mistakes, because they spent 2 or 3 years, I think, doing their build-out.
Sure.
You know, and since we've got some relationship with Chicopee and some other areas,
We've actually been dealing with the light plant a lot for Westcom.
Okay.
And then, are there any other questions?
Oh, I have a couple of questions, but I'll let you finish first.
Just
Yeah.
to let the board know that I did formally sign my agreement with Concord, and that had been kind of pending. And I did find out that Concord has approved it as well, so I'll be formally submitting my resignation and setting forth the effective dates and things like that. So looking like the end of July, early August. I know my start date in Concord is August 12th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Marie, you had questions?
Oh, a couple of questions. On the streetlights, one of the things I hope we can pull out of it is how much we were being charged by Eversource and how much we should have been charged by Eversource. Now, I know they originally came up with a high number, but we discovered some of those were lights within the parking lots. Will they be able to filter out and really give us the true number and see where we're being
Paul, can I get to that? So, Marie, Realterm did a very thorough audit. I mean, I, like Stephen, had some comments about the way they did it, the data they presented us, but if you spent the time and looked at it, they really did come up with a way that we could come up with essentially two lists. The list of lights they couldn't find that we've been billed for, and lights they found we weren't being billed for. Well, if you look at the lights they found we weren't being billed for, almost none of them were streetlights. In fact, I couldn't find any of them that were streetlights. They were like the lights in the parking lots and around the buildings and things. They weren't Eversource streetlights, so they couldn't find them, but they're metered lights. But there is a list of a number of lights that they didn't find that we were still being billed for. And I think I used it as an example. There was a streetlight outside my house that was put up in the early 1990s, and was taken down 6 or 8 months later when the select board looked to cut the cost. I know it was only up there 9 months, and it's still on the list of things we're being charged for.
So we'll have that on the list.
We do have the list.
That was one of the requests that we specifically made for a separate spreadsheet.
Right, we asked, but you had to go through and try to make sense of their spreadsheet, but we've asked them specifically to give us, I think there were 3 lists like that we asked them for, 3 or 4 lists.
So we're still waiting for those.
But we'll have those.
And then also on the Green Communities money, how much is that going to, because we pulled out, we were going to borrow $860, was it, from town meeting? So what is the savings we're looking at there, or is it minimal?
It's minimal.
It's minimal, so we're not talking about a large drop in that amount. Okay?
It was,
But we
I want
don't
to say it
have-
was
yeah.
110,000, 120, something in that neighborhood. But some of that design work wasn't necessarily carried in the budget that went to town meeting. It was included in our overall funding, but, so no, it's not a windfall or anything like that. But
So
but
do
if
we-
it turns out we were able to offset it, we certainly will.
Right, with the other lost lights. So we still don't know the final numbers because we have to negotiate with Eversource on the purchase as well as where real time is. Okay.
And we're going to keep, Agawam and West Springfield, as we talked about, are still moving forward. They are doing this, they may even got a little ahead of us.
Yeah,
but they're
Agawam's ahead of us.
Yeah, they're still going through the same process, and there's still a commitment to try and work together once we get.
What do you mean that would decrease? Are you talking about working together with negotiation with Eversource or working together with real
In
time
part,
to
yeah.
break down?
Are they negotiating with Eversource down?
I don't know if they're negotiated with, but the issue would be the purchasing power of getting all those orders in on the lights, on the new lights.
So there's still negotiation on what the cost will be to the town?
Well, no, they're certainly right. The net book value is what Eversource just gives you, and then you take the list of lights that they charge for and you try and haggle that way.
Mhm.
And like I said, we don't necessarily need to do that trilaterally with what Agawam and West Springfield, but certainly when we get ready to go to find a vendor to convert, to install the new lights and operate and maintain the system, doing that as a 3-town contract versus a 1-town contract will yield, I think, some economies of scale, like we do for solid waste recycling and some of our other regionally bid.
Since
work.
they're a little ahead of us, do they know that, are we still talking to them as a group so they know
Yes.
to try to coordinate this, okay. Then my other question was in regards to, not the street lights, the landfill capping. So we're now talking there's phase 2, and I know you mentioned it before. How much are we talking phase 2? Are we talking 100,000? Are we talking another $500,000?
It's probably another $500,000.
Really? So by the time we're done, it's almost a $3 million.
No, the capping is only $1.2 million or something like that. I gave the numbers to the board a while ago. I don't remember.
So it's more like 1.75.
Yeah, you have to separate the capping, which we were obligated to do anyway, from the, stripping and hauling and disposing of the soils. That was the 1.7. That really wasn't a part of the capping cost. The capping cost was estimated to be in the millions from the beginning, and actually we came up with a strategy, the DPW came up with a strategy to build a cap on the old stump dump. So we did that one in-house, actually. So we saved a little bit of money there, but there's 4 landfills in total, including the one where the DPW is now, that will need to be capped eventually. This by far is the biggest one, but there were 3 others.
And the governor's money was never released. Are we still looking at it as a possibility for phase 2?
I think we'll have to keep pushing on it, but no, I did learn from the governor's office that it's not in the capital plan either, so we're trying to work with our legislators to see what we can do, but it's been a no from the governor's office pretty consistently.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Move on to old business. We have minutes from May 20th to approve. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Lapusa. Are there any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? The vote is 5-0. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mark, are we going to do select board comments, or did I miss it?
You did not miss it because we didn't do it, so.
Okay, so we'll do it at some point.
If you want to, we can go back and do that now, okay?
Yeah, because I just had a quick.
Go ahead.
comment. Okay,
Sorry
just
about
in terms of the, the solar projects in Long Meadow, I spoke with this young fellow, Adam, from Solar Flare, just last week, and he said there was 45 new solar installations going in Long Meadow as a result of this project, and only about 5 in Springfield. And so, he was very excited about it, and it was due to end at the end of May. And I'm surprised that Steve Morantz didn't mention that it's been extended to the end of June. So that really does offer people another opportunity to get some solar on their house. Now, personally, I didn't think I could afford it, and then when I talked to him, I found out it was much more reasonable, and I probably had a similar experience as 45 other people who decided, this is probably the best time to do it and the best price. So if you thought that the program was ended, it's been extended, and you probably should call and get a price if you think it all would be something you want to consider. So
Thank
that's
you.
about it.
Yeah, sorry about that, Tom. Any other select board comments? No? Okay. We're going to go back to our old business. At the last meeting, we talked about water rates, and one of the things that was mentioned was that we didn't have a policy and we didn't have a plan or a process. And so I've asked that we distribute the Water Enterprise Fund policy in our packet. And the question is, the policy explains, I won't read it, but explains the purpose and the sources of income and the allowed uses of funds. And, I guess it implies that it says, for outright purchases of individual capital equipment or infrastructure for the water distribution system up to $500,000 is one of the uses. But it also says the target balance of the Water Reserve Fund shall be maintained at a level that's not less than $500,000. So that's the current policy. So the question is, does anybody have any reason, desire to look to modify this?
No, I went back and looked at it, and it's got a cap of $1.5 million, so you're right in the sweet spot, really, at 6, whatever.
Well, we're kind of on the low side.
On the low side, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's higher than
we
500.
we've made the window.
Yeah, you're just barely in the window, aren't you?
Just made the window.
Yeah.
Wait a second. It's you're in the window.
Yeah, barely in the window. How big is the window?
Window's that big and we're down here.
Yeah, you're down there, okay. How many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars is in that window? Just so the people out there in
How many
TV land
thousands?
understand.
Well, the window is
There's a thou-
500,000 to 1.5.
This is $1,000.
Okay, so it's $1 million top limit for where we are today, folks. We're way down at the bottom.
So,
Go ahead.
if I may, there was during the discussion, as I recall from 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of talk about, we didn't have the policies in front of us, and of course I can open any file I want, and I didn't really think to do it then, could have saved us a little bit of time, but, there was, since we didn't have the policies in front of us, there was a lot of discussion about, is it a target, is it a goal, what is it? And going back, as you can see from the policies that have been adopted, it is the low end of a target, where in the policies do set forth a range, because we had talked about, well, if we want to have 700,000, let's make the policy say 700,000. It turns out it's 500 to 1.5. So that was the reason why we wanted to put the policies in, to clarify that and guide the discussion, to either modify the policies or accept the rate recommendation. I think is really kind of where we're at.
I think part of it also was whether we were going to include a capital reserve item funded within the rates, which, we certainly fund within the general fund X amount of dollars every year out of our tax revenue. So that was also one of the discussion points of last 2 weeks ago, where I had put in $100,000 for those capital needs. That would seem to be the bone of conversation.
Right. Richard?
Yeah, in the last conference call with Moody's, was there any discussion on this, on our reserve funds?
There's discussion on the reserve funds, but not water and sewer. It's the general reserves of the town, which means our operational stabilization fund and our free cash number.
And where are we in reference to policy on those totals?
I believe our policy stipulates 5 to 10, and I think I projected that we would be about 7 at the end of this fiscal year.
So right about in the middle.
We're getting to the middle. We're slowly inching up in the general reserve area, yes.
That's percent, not million.
Right.
So, go ahead, Maria.
Does our water and sewer enterprise funds, are those all added in that Moody looks at?
No.
That's all considered separate, including the
considered separate.
recycle, storm, okay.
Right.
So,
But what I was asking for is the same management approach can be applied, that whatever Moody's feels is reasonable for the town, we should have similar thought processes for enterprise funds, for reasonable management of those.
I think they would look at them if we offered revenue bonds, but the bonds that we float are general obligation bonds, so in essence, they really become the final obligation should the water and sewer systems, sewer enterprise funds fail. They are going to be responsibility of the taxpayer. So like I said, if we did offer revenue bonds, they would certainly take a closer look at how the enterprise funds are run.
Right.
So Paul, I have a couple of questions for you. One is that on the spreadsheet you have for water and sewer in the bottom right, or bottom left, I'm sorry, it's lines 45 to 50. It says water retained earnings. Now, that's the beginning of the current fiscal year and the end, so that's,
Yes.
when it says water retained earnings end of fiscal year, that's what you expect to have
At
on
the end
June
of-
30th of this year?
That is correct.
So is there not a similar calculation for projection for fiscal year 20?
If there's anything for fiscal year 20, I would have it going down because I would not project additional revenues coming in, nor would I project there being turnbacks, but I would project there would be capital items being expended out of the reserves.
Oh, but you have $100,000 in the rates just for adding to the capital stabilization
And we
fund.
normally spend greater than $100,000 on capital in each fund.
Okay, I hear you. I'm just wondering that, but there is no similar.
There's no similar calculation for FY '20.
Okay, that's fine. The other question I have is that we're using a quantity of 788,000 units, right? And you actually distributed to us a document that had our historical water billable units.
Right.
And
The average there was 811, which is just over 97%, which I think is a pretty good window, given the fact that these are billable units and do not take into consideration any abatements or overcharges that are.
Right, but the 811, that's also billable, that's what we billed for.
That's what we billed for, yes.
Okay, and that was a 5-year average. If you do a 3-year average, it's actually a little higher. It's 814. So because you're dropping off a couple of low years. The 5th year and the 4th year are a little bit lower.
True.
Trust, okay.
But if you're gonna do that, do it for sewer also.
I hear you.
Okay.
You gotta do it for both, but my point is that if we have not updated the quantity of units that we expect to sell based on a rolling 3-year average, we're using 788, which is the number that we changed back in FY 16. So it's been several years that we've used 788. And if we look back today, we would use a bigger number than 788. We'd use, your number is 811 or 814, or my number would be 811, right?
811.
And so if you use that as the volume that we expect to sell, you get a lower rate.
Again, we have to, what I don't have accounted for here are the abatements that we grant out of that 811,000 units.
Okay, but then water abatements because of?
People's toilets running, that because we have a policy.
Right, okay.
Pipes giveaway during the winter. We have a policy that we're only going to go back, look at a 3-year average and charge them that when something happens to the homeowner and they have excess charges.
So the answer is we really don't know how many cubic feet of water we're actually.
Quite honestly, I'm comfortable with the 788 being within the 97th percentile of the 811.
Okay.
I mean, it allows for a little variance, which could also even include the seasonal variance that is also positive.
All right, you also put in your comments that we have capital of $119,075. Was in your comments, Paul? In the document you wrote us? Let's see if I can find that.
Yeah, the 119 is the DPW debt service on its own for water. That is the debt service for water for the DPW in FY 20.
So just, if you could, I didn't follow that. For the DPW building construction.
Building construction, remember we allocated general fund water and sewer.
So why isn't that in this water spreadsheet we've got.
It is in the water spreadsheet.
I'm trying to find it.
There should be something for debt service.
But why, it's not bonded capital?
Yes, it's part of the 707,000 on line 14.
707,570, so part of that is that?
Yes.
One night, oh, okay, so you've already included that?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it would have, so that doesn't break out the different projects, that operating budget?
I have not broken out the different projects. I mean, I do have the, I have my debt service projections.
Right, but where it says bonded capital,
Yep.
you have, Edgewood, and you've got Primrose, and you've got
Right.
Bernie, and Mayfield, you've got each of those.
I just lumped it for FY 20.
Okay, so eventually they'll get broken out as we separate the cost of those projects then, I assume.
I mean, I do have that information if you.
No, that's fine, I just didn't see that $116,000.
Right, but that is part of the 707.
Okay, so it's already in there, that's all I want to know, that it's already in there, okay. So, I'll just comment again that I think that we're potentially overcharging for water, but I recognize that we're going to continue this discussion ad nauseum, so I'm not going to continue it. Richard?
Well, why not?
Why? Because
we do other things. Its proposed rate, where will that take our reserves to?
Probably, they're not going to have much of an effect on reserves because we're kind of going to be probably utilizing that money next fiscal year when we do a capital program.
So.
But Richard, you're asking the same question I asked, is what would the reserve fund
Be a year from
projected
now.
to be a year from now? That was the same question I asked. And the answer is we don't know.
No, he's saying it's the same.
Yeah, he's saying the same. I'm just,
The answer I got was we don't know, because we don't know how much money's gonna be.
I mean, theoretically, we're taking in rates that are going to equate to our expenditures. So technically, there should be
Right.
no change. The $100,000 that is built in is easily going to be used towards capital. There's two projects, one for water, one for sewer, each over $200,000. And the only way, without building up these reserves, that we're going to be able to fund that is, one, go underneath our minimum, or two, we're going to have to bond for those. And our bonding, quite honestly, is getting up there also, that I've looked at our numbers. We have a 12% maximum for our debt service. For FY '20, we're currently at 10.66. So we are slowly creeping up to our policy limit for bonding purposes, and that's general fund water and sewer.
So, I just went back and looked long ago, and back, and I think it was really in FY '16, we put in a new line that says reserve for the specific purpose of building up the reserves, because the reserves were, I think, $250,000 at that time, or something like that. So, if you're saying that $100,000 is going to be used for bonds, I just soon take it out of that reserve line and put it somewhere else. I guess I'd feel more comfortable if we're not saying it, because based on this budget, I would expect you to have said, well, you're at $566,000 this year. Next year, our expectation is $666,000, because we put in $100,000 for reserves. And if we don't believe that, then let's take it out of that reserves line. We can put it somewhere else. I'm not arguing don't put it somewhere else, but it's not, the intent of that is not to build the reserves by $100,000, which was the reason we added that line item.
Should I define it as capital?
If that's what it is.
I mean, that's really what it's going to be more than likely used
Well,
for.
then we ought to do that. And then I'd feel more comfortable.
well, then when are we going to get the figures that we should have to be building a reserve?
We can't afford it.
Well, who said we can't afford it? We don't know what the figures are.
Which figures are you referring to?
He's talking about in higher, getting closer to the 6, 7, 8 in reserves.
You got a policy that calls for $5 to $1.5 million in reserve.
Right.
And you say right now, even with the current rates right now, that's not going to do anything to help reserves.
Right.
We're going to be still sitting at the bottom window. And if we're content being on the bottom window, that's fine, let's stay there. But no other management practice you have has us sitting at the bottom window.
Well, again, I don't mind adding it. I'm also cognizant of the political aspect of it also, too. That, there's only so much rates that people realistically are going to be able to afford or want to afford.
Well, I understand. We either increase rates or we decrease expenditures. Right?
The expenditure budget is set.
No, I mean capital projects. So we once again defer maintenance on a 70-some-year-old water system.
I'm not sure we're deferring maintenance, Richard. I think we're doing.
Getting back to the discussion on building reserves. We're not building reserves. And this whole discussion started over reserves 2 weeks ago.
But I think we just redefined that line as capital.
No, right, but Richard, you want to go back to what's the reserve policy and what are reserves for?
Right, we know the reserve policy is 500 to 1.5.
Which means we meet the policy. I mean, the policy doesn't say 750 is a minimum. It doesn't say a million is the target. It says we're 500 to 1.5 million. It doesn't say $1 million target.
There has to be a reason, Mark, for it to be 1.5. They didn't arbitrarily figure 5 to 1.5, and they didn't arbitrarily figure we're going to be on the bottom of the reserves.
No, we did.
That's not good fiducial management. You know that as well as I do.
The intent was that if we went over 1.5 million, we do something.
That's right. If we get 1.5, we're not even close to it. We're just scraping by.
And we have no need to get close to it.
How do you know we don't have a need to get close to it?
Because nobody's told me that to repair
I told you 2 weeks ago, then rewrite the policy. It doesn't need to state $1.5 million if you're not going to try to get to 1.5 million.
20 minutes ago, and we ought to restate the policy.
And I look back at the CFO and say, where should we be on that reserve based on this enterprise fund with other funds in the state? Where should our reserves be? Now, I know the water rates this year, we've had fantastic water or rainfall. We may not meet our expectations for sales on water. We don't know yet.
For
So-
FY '19, we will just barely, we will have a slight surplus in our revenue.
Right, we could have a
Slight.
surplus in revenue.
Right, we will have a slight one for FY.
And then we're going to adjust next year, and it's going to go down, and we get a dry year, and then we're going to need reserves. Is that correct?
No, if we have a dry year, we'll sell more water, and we'll have,
But I mean, based on your rate that's budgeted.
right, yeah, no, based on what I have before you, we're gonna use that $100,000, probably more than $100,000 in capital, and there would be a decline, everything else being equal.
Okay. I just think to have a policy that says 5 to 1.5, and we're sitting at 5 is ridiculous. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Take it down to 500,000, we say, hey, now we'll all light up a cigar and say we're winners. Because right now, we're just barely getting in the ballpark.
I think you're mischaracterizing what this is about, Richard. The $500,000 was to make sure there was a minimum amount there
Yeah.
to handle emergency repairs.
Right.
And the 1.5 million intent was, if it should ever get that high, clearly we've overcharged people, something.
Well, then knock off the discussion on overcharging people then. Because you just said if we hit 1.5, we're overcharging people. So let's tell the people out there,
Clearly, we
until
have
we
more
hit it,
revenue.
we're not overcharging you. So don't believe any of the stuff we tell you anymore.
No, but because we're not at 1.5 million. Marie wants to weigh in here.
I agree with you, we need to bring up our reserves. What I'm saying is now's not the time to do it. We're just increasing everything. Our debt with the new DPW is pushing on these rates. I think our CFO is telling us there's going to come a time where we can't bond anymore, and so it's got to be built into the water rates.
Are you listening to what he said?
Yes, I am listening to what he
Okay.
said, but this is not the year to do it.
Okay, but you
That's
did
my
hear
thing.
what he said.
I did hear what he
Okay,
said.
I just wanna
but,
make sure you heard what he
I
said.
heard what he said, and I said, I'd love to have it go up another 100, 200. This
Yeah.
is not the year to do it because
And
look
you
way
cushion
went
it
up.
with reserves, right?
Huh?
And you cushion that effect
You
with
will
reserves.
cushion it with reserve, but this
Okay.
is not the year to bring it up.
Okay, I just
And
wanna
then
make
we have
sure
to leave
everybody's
it at
aware of that.
Because we're going up from 3.32 to 3.45, and the push, if I look at it, is the DPW line. So I put a motion on the floor to accept the rate recommended by our CFO.
Second.
Was that the issue that was up on the, I thought we were talking about the policy.
No, he moved
No.
over to the rate.
Oh, you moved to the rate?
Yeah.
Good.
And then we're going to go back to the policy if we want.
Oh, yeah, let's go back to that policy.
I'd like to propose an amendment that we move the $100,000 out of the reserve line and put it into capital, because it's clearly not our intent to raise the reserves by putting that $100,000 there.
I'll second for discussion, but I'm gonna base everything on CFO's recommendations.
Yeah, I don't think it matters what we call
I
it.
think all we're talking about is the changing of the words.
Yeah.
No, it's changing of the budget, taking it out of there and putting it somewhere else.
Changing the.
It doesn't change the
wording.
dollar
Right,
figure.
it doesn't change any of the numbers. I
Right.
It
realize
doesn't
that.
change any of the numbers, but again, the purpose of that line item was to intentionally build reserves, and that's not what we're trying to do with that money. And as long as that we all agreed that's not what we're trying to do with that money, get it out of that line item, that's all.
What's the impact?
There is no.
What's the
impact.
mental impact?
Can I, so, the mental, the policy impact is that reserves can be used for multiple purposes. Operational shortfalls, maintenance, larger than expected maintenance costs, capital items. Capital expenditures can be used for capital. And so, I mean, I really don't care one way or the other. It is just retitling things. But if all of a sudden you move it out of reserves into capital, and then something happens and you need to draw on your reserves, are you gonna have a fight later? Well, we can't use that money, it's for capital. And then it's not there for you because you're not using it on a capital item.
But conversely, Stephen, if you budget it for reserves, can you use it for capital without a separate vote? To move it out of reserves into capital?
They do, you do. right?
We do it every year.
We're doing it every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
voted,
what's the authority to move it out of the reserves into capital, but you don't have the authority to move it out of capital and reserves? I don't get that.
I
To
think
me,
it's.
it's all semantics. I mean,
Yeah.
It is, it's all
Well,
semantics.
I know, but it's a valuable semantic. I don't think it's worth it to play around with this. It's been working. I saw this board go where we suddenly were down, how low did we go in reserves once and we had to run around?
And we were down to a couple $100,000.
Yeah,
one
we
year.
had to scatter to
Our-
pull things
Our sewer
together.
reserves were at the beginning of the year over $1 million.
Yeah.
And they've gone down to, what I project here, 600,000.
But we did that intentionally by using those reserves for capital projects.
Absolutely. And we could have used more for capital, but we kept the policy in mind.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't support
Yeah,
any
no, it should be in a
change.
place where it's most flexible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, there's a motion, the amendment was made and seconded. I'm going to vote on the amendment to move the $100,000 into capital. All those in favor? Any opposed? Vote fails, 1 for and 4 against. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the motion as made, Marie Angelides' move to propose a water rate of $3.45 per 100 cubic feet, I believe, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that motion was made and seconded by Mr. Lowe. Is there any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The vote passes 4-1, and Mr. Gold's against it. Okay. Going to move now on to sewers. Okay, we're going to have the same discussion. We have the sewer enterprise fund policy. Does anybody have any concerns, questions about the sewer policy?
Ditto.
Yeah, it's a target of $500,000, right, to $1.5 million.
Right.
Same range.
We're better shape on sewage than we know that way. Yeah.
All right, we've got a proposed sewer rate of $2.58, which is up 8 cents over last year, which is what, would you say, Paul, it's 3-point-something%?
Yeah, I think that's the percentage, 3.2.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions or comments about the sewer rate?
No, I'd like to place a motion on the table that we adopt the rates as proposed.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? Any other discussions? All those in favor of the sewer rates? Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0 for sewer rate of $2.58. I think just in closing, what I'd like to do is go back to, just make a comment that I think at some point we ought to relook at the issue of water rates and sewer rates of fixed versus variable. We brought that up a couple of times, but I still think that in light of what everybody else seems to be doing with rates around here, it makes sense for us to take another look at that in the coming year.
I'm so sorry I'm not going to be around for that battle.
You can be arranged.
Yeah, that's
We can
right.
call you back.
Just trying to take a phone call, Stephen.
Yeah,
What?
Area code
I don't recognize the
413.
number.
you can live stream.
The next order of business is consideration of our stormwater utility fees. And the stormwater fee is currently at $27 per household per year. That's one residential unit. Is that what we're calling it, Stephen? One
Yes.
Equivalent residential unit.
equivalent residential
ERU,
unit. And the proposal is to increase it to $3.39 per month, which is $40.68 for an equivalent residential unit, which is, an increase of $13 or 50%, something like that.
Didn't your budget have the increase? So we're talking about changing what was in the budget?
No,
No,
you're just setting the rate.
Just set, but this is what your budget requested?
Yes.
Okay.
So the budget's going up about $200,000
Correct.
for the zoning.
And you're
No,
still
it-
comfortable with those numbers?
No,
Paul?
no, it's only going up
$68.
$100,000.
The budget's going up $190,000.
To 8.
All right, I move to accept the proposed change in the recommended stormwater fees.
Second.
Okay. So is there any discussion? I just want to make sure we know the number here. Paul, what you're saying is,
3.39 is the one equivalent residential unit per month to $40.68 annually.
right, but the revenue is, I think is what Tom
The
asked
revenue
for.
anticipated is $292,000,
Right, up from 200,000.
up from $200,000.
Right.
okay.
So the revenue is up $100,000, about 50%, just under that, like 47%.
But it's still only covering 35% of the.
It's still only covering 35% of the stormwater department operating costs.
Right.
Right, and the comment was that you're looking over a period of years to move it up to,
Gradually move it up to, hopefully 100% at some point in the 2040.
The only thing that I don't like, we don't see the savings is not being accentuated on the other side of the budget.
The savings actually more or less is going to end up, you have a target of $250,000 not to go up on Proposition 2.5. That's where your
Yeah,
savings
but
are.
it's not being demonstrated, Paul.
It's not shown here.
Right.
I think on a previous calculation I had made that the savings for a average value home for the $250,000 that we're saving, it nearly equates to the increase in the stormwater fee.
Right, because I mean, to the general public, I think that are watching, they just heard this fee is going from 27 to 40.
Right.
And that's the only thing that went in their ear.
Right.
And they say, well, that's an extra tax.
And again, your policy that we thus far have met to only go up 2 of the 2.5% on Prop 2.5, it's about $250,000. That, going back to the average valued homeowner or residential homeowner, is going to equate to nearly the same dollar value. So you have a reduction, I don't want to say a reduction, you'll have less of an increase in your property tax, and it's going to really be offset by the increase in your stormwater fee.
So you're sitting at,
Well, it depends on the value of your house, which, I mean, I think
Right.
when we discuss this at the budget.
it's intended to be
Right.
flush.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain homeowners, and I think it's probably the majority of homeowners for whom it's a reduction versus the town taxing to the full 2.5% per year, which we've done for many, many years, versus the stormwater utility fee increase. It's a net gain for, I think, probably the majority of homeowners.
I just think we could do a better job of selling it in this room with the cameras running. I just don't think we've sold that well enough.
So,
Because
Paul, I think what I heard you say is, for the $352,000 home, which is the average valued house,
Yeah.
this increase in the stormwater utility is essentially what is the difference between a 2% tax increase and a 2.5% tax increase.
It's equating to only utilizing 2 of the 2.5% increase allowable by Proposition 2.5.
Right, but the dollar figure is equivalent to, had it been 2.5%.
Right, the dollar figures equate to the,
But then the converse is that if your house is on the low end of, or below the median housing value, you're paying a little bit more. And if it's above the median housing value, you're paying a little bit less.
Yes.
Through this.
Yes. Again, but at the same time, we do have the nonprofits paying, so it does kind of bring in some other people into the mix of payers also.
Right, but
that's true, and a nice, big, colorful spreadsheet showing all that stuff would really be nice. If you could put up on that bulletin board and people in TV land could see it. And I really do mean that.
I know what you're saying, Rich.
I really do mean it.
The worst course I had in my business courses was marketing.
Yeah, you got
So
a
I guess
good
it's
point.
showing.
You got a good point to sell, and it's a good program. But the only thing that rings in the ears is 27 to 40.
Understood.
Yeah. But other than that, great job, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. I guess that, the issue is it's already built into the town budget. I mean, this is just, we're setting fees based on what we already did at the town budgeting system. So it's essentially paid for. I mean, I think there's some question of how much money would just do tax shifting, so we're pulling things out of the tax base and putting it into fees, and this may be another example of it, but
We ought to start wearing costumes in here before long.
what are the costumes?
You know,
which-
pulling rabbits out of hats and stuff like that.
No, it's not pulling rabbits out of hats, it's moving it out of the tax base and
Hitting
putting it
the
into...
ceiling, it's a very important rabbit trick.
But it's a net zero.
It's a net zero
It's a net
effect,
zero.
as long as people realize that. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
No.
Hearing none, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of setting this tax rate? Any opposed?
Stormwater rate.
The stormwater rate, I'm sorry. Tell you where I am, thank you.
It's a low tax rate.
AKA tax.
Yeah, it's the stormwater rate, thank you. Okay, we
Mark,
have...
You do have a couple people in the audience who are expected to speak. I don't know if you wanted to move around things so they don't have to sit through all this good stuff.
All the good stuff? All right. But let's just go through our board appointments, and then we'll take care of them, okay? Because we have, there's a packet here, a distribution. These are the board people who we've completed the interviews for these positions, and we can make appointments, so I want to get these going. Marie?
How can I do two at once? I move to appoint Mr. Patel and Mr. Skiri to the 3-year terms expiring 6/22 for the audit committee.
May I just say on Miss Patel that she is also applying for the finance committee?
And if she is appointed there, she will not be able to be on
Not
the
be able
audit
to serve
committee.
here. We meet with her on Thursday for her interview.
Okay, well, we can appoint her.
Yeah,
and then
I'm just saying.
Don't let that skew you.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? The vote is 5-0. Marie?
Move appoint Carolyn Reed for the 3-year term expiring 6/22 for Board of Assessors.
Is there a
Second.
Motion's made by Ms. Angelides and seconded by Mr. Foster. Any comments? All those in favor? Vote passes 5-0.
Move to appoint to the Board of Health Dr. Barry Eisenstein and Dr. Richard Steingart for the 3-year terms expiring 6/20/22.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Foster. Any comments? All those in favor? Okay, passes 5-0.
Steve, you voted.
Move to appoint to the Building Demolition Committee Dan O'Malley for the 3-year term expiring 6/20/22.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. You're on a roll, Marie.
Move to appoint Capital Planning Committee Dan Healy for a 3-year term expiring 6/20/22.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Move to appoint James Ryan for the Energy and Sustainability Committee for a 3-year term expiring 6/20/22.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Move to appoint to the Zoning Board of Appeals David Lavenberg and Suzanne White for the, oh wait, I have to break this up.
Dave Lavenberg for the 5-year term.
Dave Lavenberg for the 5-year term expiring 6/20/24, and Susanna White for the 3-year associate term expiring 6/20/22.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Marie, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we're gonna skip our town manager search comment just to go to discussion of capital planning, and we have Dr. Stephen Metz here who wants to ask to speak to us about capital planning. Dr. Metz, come forward. And just so everybody knows, we were given a handout, so we all have your handout, Dr. Metz.
I'm Stephen Metz, 171 Coventry Lane. I'm also chair of the Capital Planning Committee. And as the Select Board has asked us, about quarterly we receive reports from the DPW to let us bring us on an update as to what the status of the capital projects has been. Not talking about the funds, just the progress of the projects themselves. Gave you a spreadsheet which shows the update as of 31st, actually as of about a week ago, because I checked with Mr. Mazza to increases. I have given you the spreadsheet. Most of it's been completed. Most of these projects have been completed. And I didn't know if you certainly willing to entertain any questions you have.
Does anybody have any questions? Marie?
Just want to say thank you. This is fantastic to see this update and so thoroughly put together. Thank you very much. I just have a question. Is there any projects you're concerned about?
The one that predominantly is the Wolf Swamp well. Apparently the hang-up right now is that Eversource has been tasked to bring a three-phase power into the building that controls this thing, and euphemistically they've been a little difficult to work with apparently. Now it seems to me that the town has several other projects involved with them, and I think it might be worthwhile to perhaps ask them to come to the table on the whole package so that this can move along.
Oh, wow.
Just as a as a comment, we've had this issue before with bringing in power for wells in the fields. We had the Turner Park fields and the other, if you recall, it was the same issue with Eversource.
Well, I just had a question on the Long Meadow High School pool refinishing. Now, with that project, did they talk about making any changes to the water gutter system?
Not to us. It's not
in terms of, because, the way the waves, if they go over the edge, the pool's a lot faster for swimmers than if it gets bounced back. And if you're going to refinish it, I don't know, they didn't talk about doing anything like that.
That would be like a reconstruction, it would be pretty significant.
The refinishing project really is to change the material to paint it with. It's
Just the base inside, yeah.
I don't know what the technical term is, but that's basically what you're talking about, that coating.
Yeah, I guess that would be.
Yeah, it's not, in fact, when we brought that project forward to the capital planning committee, there was a lot of talk about how it's not capital, it's just paint. And to explain that it's like sandblasting and making sure that the structures at the bottom of the pool are all correct, and then applying a material over it, not just, roller and pool paint. So that's why it's
we were
much
very
bigger.
happy
It's
to
not-
get the.
It's not reconstruction of the gutters or anything.
Okay.
We were very happy to be brought up to speed on what it meant.
So, Dr. Metz, one of the things that I noted in this is the number of projects that were significantly estimated. And I guess my question is there anything that, that in there that concerned you that, we tied up a lot more money in capital, you could have done extra projects if we had known they were going to come in, at lower amounts of money, and, especially the ones that are, completed for, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars less than we put aside. I mean, the money comes back around. It's not like it's wasted money, but you could have spent it then instead, it's kind of been tied up.
Estimation of these projects has always been a moving target for us. I think that the processes have been put in place where they're required to actually find quotes, and the current market value of these things has improved our ability to judge more accurately, but still, obviously, it's a work in progress.
Okay, Stephen, maybe I could ask you, I mean, the one that jumped out at me is the boiler replacement at Wolf Swamp School that we allocated $144,000. Thankfully, we only spent $104,000, but that's $40,000 that we either could have spent on something else or.
That particular one was based on our prior experience with boilers in other parts of town. We have all these boilers that kind of were put in at the same time that are not the best quality, I suppose, is a way to put it. And they're all breaking down kind of now. So the estimate for that particular boiler was based on what it cost to replace the one before it.
Mark, I'll add, and there's at least one of them that sticks out. It's $119,000 for pavement replacement.
Well, that was just, we paved less stuff, we got good bits.
Right, and that money's going to move forward into next year. So it's just one of those things. I mean, the example that you used is a project-oriented one that certainly came in far less than we had appropriated.
Right, and I understand, the money's not wasted, it's just that it's a shame that you come here with a list of 30 projects and say, we can only fund 28 of them, or 22 of them, and you might have been able to do 2 more with it. Had we known, that was.
Can I cast that a different way?
Sure.
If we tried to make it a little tighter, so we wouldn't have these surpluses left on projects, the number of completes would be far less, and you'd have a lot more items on the list that say insufficient funds to cover bid, going back for more money, like we did a number of years ago.
But that's why we have a special line item there of a capital appropriation for handling those overages, so you don't have to come back to the town meeting.
That's a very small amount of money.
It's, you know, it's $20,000 or $25,000.
$25,000.
Yeah, that usually wouldn't cover.
You're talking
just
about, what,
amazed that-
1% or less?
All I'm saying is that this one for $140,000, you know, I get it, you can go 5,000, 10,000, but it was $40,000 under our estimate. And I'm not blaming you or anything, I'm just saying, what could we have done differently? Well, no, it's not Steve's fault, it's not
But the
anybody's
good
fault.
thing then is that it's under budget.
Yeah, that's fault, blame, like, what are we talking about?
No, the issue is we have projects we didn't do. I mean, we always never can get the things we need to do, that's all.
The issue, though, is how much can we handle?
Well,
There's always that fine line of.
That's a whole different story of how many projects we can manage.
The only thing I wanted to finish up with is that the water and sewer projects, it says they're going to be completed by June of 19. They're obviously not going to be. However, the water pipe projects have been recently awarded, and they're expecting the construction to be done in the next few weeks. The sewer project has been defined very well, and it's going out to bids in the next couple of weeks. So Mr. Mazzi anticipates those will be done before the end of the summer.
Well, thank you for your work on the capital planning committee. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Metz. Okay. Yeah, we've got a guest here, Aaron Hastings, who's the new director of our Westcom project. And Aaron, if you'd like to come up and introduce yourself.
So, Mark, I asked, and the board, I asked Erin to come here this evening. As you know, she's a relatively new hire. She's our first executive director for Westcom, and I wanted, since the board hasn't met her, to have a chance to hear her background and hear, I mean, it's been a very busy start for her, and hear some of the major milestones we've achieved, and ask any questions about the current state of our regional dispatch.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Erin Hastings, Executive Director of Westcom. I started in the middle of March. I come from 30 years of dispatching, 20 years. My last 20 years have been with a regional center with 10 communities. I was also an officer for 15 years, and I ran on the ambulance for about 5 years in town. So with Westcom, we started the infrastructure, so we're building out the radio systems, which came at a perfect time for Long Meadows because they were reaching end of life, and that was part of the $3.3 million worth of grants that we've received so far. We've also applied for another $1.6 million from the state 911, which we expect to be awarded in September. We're making it so that it's easily expandable if we can get other towns to join us once we're open. We're making that an option, which will eventually reduce your cost as well. We're looking for a go-live date of October 1st, so we've been working on it towards that. We've posted 12 positions for hiring, which will initially just be for Chicopee Police Department, and they are funding the salaries for those positions right now. We're looking to start them August 5th. And then we will bring Long Meadow in towards the end of September, first week of October. And then we'll also hire an additional 10 after that. The salary and the benefits we've been able to establish will give the current Long Meadow dispatchers somewhat of a raise, but still work within the budget that was presented to the board a while back for fiscal year 20. We've been writing the personnel manual to go along with the benefits that Long Meadow offers them, so there's very little change to them when they come over. And that's pretty much where we are right now.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on Ms. Hastings?
What do you see the major challenges the next year?
The getting people in and getting them properly trained for a regional center when I don't have some people there to train them initially. So that's one of our biggest challenges.
So will you be the only one with regional experience?
Yes.
Okay.
What regional center were you associated with?
State Police in New Braintree.
How large of a community involvement was, how many people, residents?
With the 10 communities, the population was about 68,000 altogether. The area was from the Connecticut line to the New Hampshire border.
And how many staff was in the center?
We had 15 altogether.
And so the physical location, that's where your office is now?
We're in, my office is at the Chicopee Police Department, and that's where the center is going.
It's in Chicopee Police Department, okay. And is it going to be an adequate facility at this point?
It will be for a little while. If we tend to grow in size, maybe in a few years, we'd have to go to someplace bigger. The State 911 Department has been fantastic with their grant funding. The development grant that's exactly what it's meant for, is to expand, to redo the radios, to do all the infrastructure. They pay for a lot of that. There's very little that we've had to ask for money on. We will transition to a support and incentive grant once we're open, which that they'll pay for our training, some of the salaries, a lot of the equipment that we use. And then if we decide to expand in the future, we go back for another development grant, and we can do that.
And from your experience, how often do other communities jump on board once it's established?
This is a new concept for the state. Massachusetts is cutting edge when it comes to 911 technology. They're the first state to go to the next gen, which is the 911 system that's in place right now, and they've gone statewide. The technology allows for the cell calls to go direct. The texting to 911 is now available, and they anticipate picking up video to 911, live stream video to 911 within the next 2 years. So they're trying to reduce the number of answering points in the state, and they're offering all these incentives to regionalize so that they can just have everything in one spot, do the trainings, the personnel. So it's new, so we don't know who's going to want to come on board afterwards.
Okay, and Aaron, I was just wondering, in terms of the 911 calls that the state police handle now and they'll be switched to you, do you see a pretty smooth transition with that process?
Yes, Longmeadow has actually started taking cell calls direct over the past few months.
Okay.
And 85% of the calls that are made to 911 are cell calls. Up until the last few months, those were going to state police and then getting transferred into Longmeadow. So now they're taking them direct, and when we get them over to Chicopee, they'll go direct to us.
Okay, and so the funding tied to people's phone bills that goes to cover those, so that'll be funneling in also?
That's where the grant money comes from,
That's
is
where
that
grant
funding.
money's coming from. Okay, all right, great, sounds good, thank you.
Richard?
Is it looking like the program is being designed to bring in the communities that aren't joining, kicking and screaming at a later date by new legislation or funding?
It's being designed to invite those communities. The way 911 is looking to reduce the number of answering points in the state. In the next few years, one-person dispatch centers, like Longmeadow, where you have one person answering the phone and doing the radio, will be obsolete, and they will be forced to move. And at that point, the state will actually be able to tell them where they're going. So at least now we have the opportunity to say, well, we want these communities that are in our area that we can service and still be a local person.
So I guess the question I have, that is one the residents have, and that is, what are you going to do as the director of Westcom to assure the folks of Longmeadow that we have the same level of service that we have now and not get impacted by the fact that it's, the city of Chicopee is got, I don't know, some multiple numbers of the calls that Longmeadow gets, and I don't know if it's 10 times or 20 times or that, and that yet we get the same response we're getting now, and it doesn't really matter whether they're here in Chicopee or San Diego, California for the call center.
Well, as the director, I'm kind of hoping you get a better service than what you're getting now. I understand that the people that you have are fantastic, and I hope that most of them do come over, and that's why we're trying to offer the same benefits and a higher salary to them. But you're also getting, they're going to be allowed to train more, and you're also getting more people delivering the service to you. So right now, where you have somebody that's working a window where people are walking in, they're on the phone, they're trying to give medical instructions to somebody that's having an emergency, they're on the radio trying to send the ambulance. With all of those things happening at once, somebody's losing out to that service. So the person at the window is either standing there a lot longer than they should, the person on the phone has to be put on hold at some point during their medical emergency so that they can send out an ambulance and a cruiser. So with more people in the center, you have one person that's dedicated to that phone line, and that's their job, is to take care of your emergency. You have another person listening to it, and they're sending the ambulance and the cruiser. So you're getting a better response.
And so the issue, people should not be concerned about the issue that we're sharing resources with with a city that's taking up a lot more of the resources than we are now.
No, I think if anything, they're giving us a little bit more resources than what we could afford on a small town salary.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, I've been part of a regional, county head regional dispatch center, so I've seen them operate, and it's phenomenal in what they do. I don't think any of the current board members have visited a regional center, and I was wondering, when will the center be open for people to come up and take a look at it as a tour, so they understand it better?
It's available now to anybody that wants to schedule an appointment, but October 1st when we open, I think would be the best time, because then you'll have your Longmeadow dispatchers there to greet you.
Right, because seeing's believing.
Yep.
When they understand the way your segmentation and everything is going on at once. It's just a big monstrous machine operating at one
Well,
time.
I think, Richard, one of the problems was that there was a lot of spillover from the Springfield City Council race that was, 911 calls made in Springfield need to stay in Springfield, that kind of stuff that kind of poisoned the well locally to a lot of people.
That's archaic thought process.
I hear you, but there was still yet that spillover.
That call nowadays can be handled in San Francisco just as well.
And I don't think people realized when they called from a cell phone that it didn't go to Longmeadow in the beginning. I mean,
Right.
for the past 10 years, it's been going to Northampton or Framingham before it came to Longmeadow.
Right, and that's been the delay, Tom.
And Aaron, one more question. So, we did have one situation here where there's a tornado came through Springfield, and, it could hit anywhere. We are on the river, too. So when a major emergency like that happens, how does your dispatch center adjust to that? I mean, do you plan for those things in terms of having more people in and
Yes, there's
coordinating?
always, we always have the calls themselves, if we get overwhelmed, actually roll to a secondary 911 center. So
Okay.
they never go unanswered. And then if for some reason, and it's usually a distance away, but they know they're getting the calls, so they know that they come right back to us. And we have an internal communications with them, so that if our systems do go down, they can't call us on the phone. They have other ways of reaching us. I was in Brimfield when the tornado came through there, and I was working. And we work it just like the fire department or the police department. We call in everybody. We develop an incident command. We do an emergency operations center, and we handle it. We also have been able to pulling staffing from other centers if we need it, if it gets to that size of an emergency.
All right, thank you, Aaron.
Are you building in the frequencies now of all the departments?
Yes.
So it's going to be built in?
That's part of the
It's
infrastructure.
in the backbone,
That's-
it's just
yep.
waiting to be used, okay. So you'll still be able to fire up every municipality around here regardless of their participation in the center.
Interoperability is one of the big things that the grant asks for.
For incident
so-
command purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go
I
ahead.
just want to make a comment. I want to commend Erin on the work she's done. What you got was a 10,000-foot view of it. I think we report on it, but the level of technical and technological detail that Erin has to be proficient in, I don't have the capacity for it. So whenever they start talking about radio frequencies and stuff, I kind of just tune out but then the grant administration, as Paul will tell you, is its own level of complexity and complication, because there's two different types of grants. We're planning for one, and we're working with a different type, and they're very rigid in how State 911 administers that. And I think Erin's done an excellent job being able to do the kind of grant management stuff, but then also really stay ahead of the technology and then the personnel, like developing the personnel manual stuff. So we're in really good hands, and I'm excited for the future.
Just before you leave, Aaron, Jessica, I may have missed this, but what is going to be the target audience and the target employment level on October 1st?
We have a total of 27, including myself, a part-time administrative person, an IT person, and then the rest are dispatchers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark,
Yeah.
I have a question actually for Stephen, and that is, how's the transition going to go? You're right now the chair of the oversight board. Who are you recommending, and who else is on that committee? Who else is on the oversight board?
The board of directors is just myself and Mayor Costa's designee. The district agreement.
So it's just two of you?
It's just the
right
two
now?
of us.
Okay.
We meet as a group with the service chiefs as the operations committee,
Mhm.
but when it comes time to vote on something, it's just John and I vote. But we want everybody's input, we want Aaron's input, so we meet kind of, we still do the group thing that we've always done. Under the district agreement, the whoever you appoint as town manager is automatically on the board of directors. When we had the discussion about an interim town manager, I mean, I assume that the interim town manager will do that as well. But you could also,
yeah.
I mean, I'd have to go back, it is specified in the district agreement, but you could go back and have a designee, and I've given that some thought. I think I know who I could designate as a temporary board of director, temporary member of the board until a new permanent town manager is appointed. And we can talk about that a little as
Okay,
things
but
advance,
you'll
yeah.
consider some sort of transition plan
Yeah.
for us? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, no, but it would be, Chief Dearborn would be the one person I would designate to do it. He's been riding along with us the whole time.
Is that a conflict because he's on the operational subcommittee or whatever you were saying?
He would probably then appoint Deputy Chief Jay McSada as his representative on the operations committee, because the two of them have been hand in hand and really done great work to get us to this point.
Okay. And how often do you meet?
Right now, we're meeting every week because there was a time where we weren't meeting all that often, and because Aaron has been pushing things forward and keeping us busy, we're meeting every week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take up our next, agenda item, which is to approve the warrant for the annual town election coming up on Tuesday, June 11th. Is there a motion to approve the warrant?
No, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? The vote is 4-0. Mr. Foster is temporarily out of the room. Next one is there's actually a block party proposal.
Is there a rain date? I didn't seem to see one.
I didn't see one either.
Yeah, so I guess that's so.
Yes.
Oh, there is?
June 16th.
Oh, I see
Right
it now.
next to it.
Okay. Okay, I move to approve the Bach Party for Captain Road on June 15th with the rain date of June 16th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Angeles and seconded by Mr. Lowe. Any comments? All those in favor? Vote is 4-0 again. Thank you. We have two other items, and Stephen's out of the room right now. Maria, I'd like to go back to the town manager's search discussion.
Okay, let me pass these. Richard and I will sign last. Okay, so I have put together packets. The subcommittee met and discussed some things. Well, let me hand these out. And I have, oh, thank you. Saves me walking. And then for you, and this is for you and Paul to share. And then I got this, I think is almost a full packet for you too. Yeah. All right, so the packet, on the left-hand side of the packet are the three companies you recommended that we go talk to, and they all sent bids to us. Reviewing them, I sent them to everyone, though I know you couldn't get back to me on it. I think I talked to each of the companies, and looking at the prices, I'm going to recommend Community Paradigm Associates. Tom and I talked about them. They came in here and worked with us on the facilitation in the beginning when we had Stephen here for, goal setting. And I think that Mr. Lynch really knows the community. I think his prices were the most reasonable. The only, concern I had was he's not going to be able to start till a little bit later, in a couple of weeks. But I think when we look at how much time he's given to some of these things like informational gathering, I don't think it's going to take a whole month because that's something we can work on. I don't know what the requirement is for actually do we have to put this out on bid? The Collins Center, I think that's why we chose them the first time. They said, oh, you don't have to put anything out to bid when it comes to it. It is under $10,000, so.
I think we're all set with the Collins Center because they're I think they're a governmental entity. We never had to go out to bid, but you have 3 quotes, right? I mean, you presented 3 quotes. So that covers Chapter 30B right there.
Okay.
And the bid doesn't require that we just go out public bid and come one, come all?
The thresholds have been raised to $50,000.
But So
for
in
3
other words,
quotes.
just getting these quotes is sufficient. I just want to make sure nobody comes along and said, hey, nobody asked me for a quote, and I'd have done it for
We have it
$5.
covered.
Okay, that's fine.
And then when you look at the breakdown of prices, it's worth it to still read through the 3 proposals because then you get an idea of what the costs are, and he's breaking it down to the phase 1 and 2 is a certain amount of money, and then he's saying, let's see, proposed options on search advertisements and things like that. And I think we could really sit down and start talking to Mr. Lynch when he gets back in the country about what we're going to spend money on. If anyone has any feelings about that and how much money we spend. The other thing, 2 things we looked at, one was we pulled the old ad out. This was sent to everyone on the board to see what changes needed to be made. I thought it was pretty comprehensive. I gave the highlighted portions that I felt was definitely worth a discussion on this board. The first highlighted area is public finance, and our CFO immediately put together an updated version for that paragraph, and that's included in the packet. And the areas that we need to vote and discuss on are, I think, the requirements. On section 1, 2, 3, 4, we ran into a little problem on this section when we went out for the bid the first time with the town manager. And that was we were requiring so many years of experience and we couldn't get enough candidates. So we actually had to cut down on this when we went to our final. So I'm thinking we really want to look at that again to see, is it really required to have this amount of experience or a master's or things like that? So I think we need to rediscuss that because it's not how we hired last time. Also, we have to look at the search period. Of course, that doesn't work because it's different dates. And we need to look at the salary line. I think we, as a board, have to decide what should be the range of the salary line. And of course, the last part of the application process will be corrected by Mr. Lynch. If that's who the board goes ahead, I think it would be good to have a vote to decide we should start negotiations with a specific firm. The last thing I have in the packet here was, I know in the past we did the town manager search committee. Most of the companies that discussed helping us pull together a town manager search committee, I just put down some ideas, worked with Tom on some other ideas for everybody for us to begin. This is, of course, this is like a working draft. I think last time we had about 9, 10 people on it. There was a select board liaison member, but on it last time I was. But that was a voting position. I'm not sure if it still should be a voting position. I also tried to look at possibilities of increasing the ratio of men versus women on the board, the town manager search committee. But this is something I think everyone should have an input in, and we can decide. So that's just a rough draft of that. The last thing is talking about a interim town manager. I tried to put down the list of things that are coming up that I think an interim town manager is going to be essential for us to have. There's a lot going on. Mr. Lynch says he would call around, but he says this period of time in the summer, most people have planned their vacations or have planned their jobs. He says there's still some people we can look at and try to call in regards to an interim town manager. I don't think most places will really, we can get that service for free. We don't need to find someone to find us one. I think that someone recommended to me call Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They also make recommendations, no charge to us, on what the local talent is. I think we're going to have to be a little more thinking out of the box when it comes to an interim. I know our previous town manager is retired, but I'm not sure if she really wants to commute all the way out here. It might be worth a consideration. There's other people that we could start calling around to see what they have. But I think an interim town manager, I would love to see have some overlap with the current town manager so there could be discussion about what's out there. I just made a list off the top of my head. There's probably a million things on Stephen's mind that's not even near that list. And I think our assistant town manager, the budget and managing day-to-day operations is going to be a tremendous job, let alone trying to look at the extra projects. So I think an interim town manager is something we really need to have at the top of our list as we roll out the possibilities. So these are just things that we discussed. The one other thing, additional thing is that since Mr. Lynch is not available for the next 2 weeks, though he is available by email, the first thing he was talking about was gathering information from people. And Tom actually has a lot of experience in that he helped work on the beginning of the search for a new president at Springfield College, was it?
Yeah.
And so he has some really good ideas you might want to talk about now about having how to reach out and get a profile or ideas of what people are looking for.
Yeah, so, when I was at Springfield, we had an interim president, and so what we decided to do was to put together a vision committee, and I was on the committee with the president and another faculty member. And what we basically did is the plan with this would be to contact, town departments, some boards and committees, and we'd offer a series of questions that would be asked to determine, what's your current vision of your role in the town, in this department or committee, and what's your future vision of your role and plans for growth that a new town manager should be aware of and prepared to help with. So unfortunately, I donated all my notes from that process to the archives at Springfield College. So I contacted them today to see if I can take a look at it and see exactly what kind of questions we had, because I think that would be a good place to start. And then the findings would be used to compile questions that can be used to help the town manager search committee, develop an idea about what they want. Because really, if you're pretty sure of what your vision of the town is, where things are going to go in the department level, and then build that up, it helps you determine who's the best person. And so the other thing is, when I looked at our descriptions of for the job announcement, I thought maybe that first paragraph should be changed a little bit, where it talks about professional attributes, and I thought I had an idea about something put that person should be a seasoned professional who has led a comparable size organization with significant experience with construction projects, negotiating with private and state agencies, employers, and public meeting presentations and discussions. Because a big part of this role really is going to be about dealing with construction projects right off the bat, as soon as they hit the ground, because we'll have a number of them, as you can see from the list that Marie put together about the things that will be handled by the interim town manager. Also, the new town manager is going to be doing that also. And I guess when we look at composition of a search committee, I wasn't sure if we should, perhaps when we look at a department head, include someone from DPW because of the lights, the camping, the cap on the dump. You know, there's so many big projects coming up that involve DPW that, you know, we may want to consider that. And then the other thing is, should we consider having someone with a green perspective? Marie, I don't know, you know, we didn't really get to talk about that in our meeting, but, you know, that is sort of a big part of the way we look at our community, as we can tell by the people who came to speak in our meeting earlier tonight, that they're really concerned about the environment. And so, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, we can put together a sort of a vision quest, no, but a vision committee and come up with information to be valuable in terms of where the town is heading. And it's different than saying, well, this is where it's really on the departmental level. Like, this is what we're working on currently, this is what we're doing, and then we see in 5 years from now, this is the kind of thing we might be expanding to. And it may bring out something new, but we may not get anything that surprises us, actually. But hopefully we'll get some information.
Anybody else have any other?
Stephen.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can be as helpful or not, or, you know, or out of it as you want me to be. I guess I would just offer feedback on a couple of things. On the list, it's a good list. There's obviously more than that.
Oh, are you talking about items?
The
that
interim
need to be
town manager
handled?
items?
I figured you'd be adding to
So
that.
one of the things, I mean, there's personnel things that, for obvious reasons, don't get, you know, aren't publicized in town manager reports that'll have to be discussed. But one of the things we're doing at next Monday's staff meeting is going through kind of a whiteboard exercise to see what our individual department's priorities right now and prioritizing them for the remainder of my time. And then obviously it'll be handed over to an interim, or whoever, an interim town manager, or whoever's gonna, you know, have the wheel going forward. So I will be developing my own list, and I think it'd be helpful to have that inform yours, Marie, or the board's list. The other thing is, I guess I would recommend against having employees on the selection committee. I have never encountered that. It kind of disadvantages a small number of employees.
We had that last time. We did have employee representation
On the search committee?
on the search committee, yeah.
No, there was a meet and greet with the employees.
No, I think we had an officer,
Oh,
and you were on it. Yeah, we had two members. But that's all right, that's something the board can consider.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're going to have one, Paul would be the obvious choice. But when you get below that, it kind of because then who do you choose? And I guess, like I said, I think it's an outside perspective. The other thing is, I could certainly, if the board is interested, there are people that I have worked closely with in the community that may not be amongst the usual suspects, and I'm happy to give you recommendations of names of people who could be good in the search committee, because I've worked closely with them. And like I said, they're not the people you see here on the board and committee interviews all the time. That may be, I think, good for a search committee appointment. But I don't have to, but I feel like it could be helpful.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to, Marie, thank you for this. Obviously, you did a lot of work. Tom, thank you for doing this. It's a ton of work. I guess I have a couple of questions. I'm going to end up with a big question, which is, okay, so now what? But along the way, I spent a lot of time in the last 8 years in my job helping people do searches for executive directors of agencies, and the tendency is to look at your current executive director, the person who's leaving, whether they're, the 35, 40-year-old, 35 or 40-year long employee who's retiring, or the 3-year or 5-year employee who's moving along. And the tendency is always to try to target people who have strengths where your current executive director has weaknesses. And what you often do is skip the strengths where your current executive director has strengths. And I think we want to make sure we don't do that. And so I think there's some tweaking perhaps that can go on to some of this list in terms of what we want. So Tom, you're right, the DPW or capital projects are important, but I think that, I'd like to look for somebody for the long haul, and capital projects will come and go, and and in 2 years, and we get somebody who's strong in capital projects, but they're not good in anything else, I think we've made a mistake. And that's not to say that they won't be good in someplace else, but, you know, I think we need to really look at the whole job description here and look where they are and not really worry too much about the issues that are coming up in the short term. So that's kind of my comments to make sure where we're doing it. I think what I'd like to see us do is put together, as Marie started, a list of the categories of people we want. You know, how many people from communities, how many people from committees, how many people from other elected organizations, other elected boards in town, and then work to populate that separately from being, pardon me, biased by names that may show up there. You know, I mean, you know, because we may want, you know, a member of a resident, but we may not want, you know, any particular resident. And I think the other thing we'd done in the past was had input from all 5 members of the select board. And I think at some point when we get to that committee process, we need to do it as well. You know, I did read through the proposals that the 3 groups submitted. You know, I can't tell you that I thought that there was one that stood out from the others. I think they were all saying just about the same thing. I think the process, though, of sorting through a lot of applications to fewer and getting those fewer to a citizens committee who gets them to even fewer that come to the select board worked last time, and we ought to consider doing that again, whether it's, I don't know how many come in, but if we say, look, we want 8, give or take, to go to a citizens committee, and then 2 or 3 to come to the select board, I think that we need to agree that we're going to do that. So the question is, you know, again, I looked at these, you know, we worked with the Collins Center last time. I didn't have such a phenomenal experience with them that I said, oh, no, we got to go use them again. Seriously, I mean, that would be the thing to say, it was such a great experience, let's do it again, but it wasn't that way. You know, so the question is, you know, you made a recommendation, I'm not, you know, sure that familiarity is the only reason. I don't even know municipal resources, but I didn't see anything in these things, and maybe others looked at too, that clearly differentiated these proposals. I really did. So if you're making the recommendation,
All right, so I guess today, the only 2 things I was looking for was at least if I don't get a vote, at least a feeling from the board that we should start the negotiations with Community Paradigm. And then the second thing was that Tom can go ahead and start gathering information from the committees on a vision approach to see what people are looking for. And then I would say, as Mark says, we could start with categories. Everyone come up with sets of categories, and the next meeting, if we could vote on the categories and who we're going to approach. I think what we did last time worked in that we decided who we were going to ask, rather than say, oh, please give us, you know, start the appointment process where we're interviewing. Because we need people that really have an understanding of our form of government. This thing Stephen wants to add to it is fine.
Stephen, we'll send it to you electronically, yeah.
Anyone who wants to make changes on this, we could nail that down for the next meeting too, send in any recommended changes, and then we could vote on the changes. And then we'll get that done, and then maybe the next meeting. So in other words, the next meeting will take care of these 2 things, which is the search committee composition and the ad. But if you could give us the go-ahead on the Community Paradigm and discussion with the committees, then we could at least be doing something.
Again,
already.
what was the purpose of discussion with the committees? Because committees don't run our town.
No, it's to get their input of what they're looking for, what their goals are in the future, so that whoever comes in will understand where the committees are.
I'm not sure where the committees would have an influence on our town manager selection, because the town manager sets direction for the committees.
Tom, do you want to explain?
No, I'm asking, I don't need Tom to explain.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, committees are committees. They fall in the direction of the select board and town manager. They do not manage the town manager, nor do they manage the select board.
Well, I think that there are residents who are very active in the community who might have
But you said committees.
committees, so in other words, it's a way of getting committee input.
But I don't see.
I mean, community
I'm
input.
just sharing with you, I don't see the value in that for determining the qualifications for a town manager, because that seems to be too isolated into touchy-feely instead of management-type issues. You need a strong manager in the community, and that comes with a skill set that is identifiable to the KSAs and the application that they put in. I mean, you can do what you want. I'm just saying, I don't see the value.
I'd like to hear more also. So, I mean, we don't have to run ahead with that at this point. I mean, the issue's going to be, you know, because I assume, Tom, from what you said, it's what are the characteristics of a town manager that you're looking for of having somebody who could help you achieve your charter of your group, right?
Yeah,
You know, and the analogy is if you're in the Latin department, you want somebody who understands Latin or whatever it may be, right?
And so, again, I wish I had those specific kinds of questions that I'd have, but you're right, not all committees would have much to share, but if, let's say, the cultural committee says, well, we're going to have, a Long Meadow Film Festival, and we're going to have, a whole series of these things that we're planning in the future that would impact the kind of town manager.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think
it
so?
would impact anything on the town manager. I'm not going to hire a town manager on his ability to deal with one committee. We're going to look for a manager, a top-quality manager.
Well,
I mean, you're getting
Okay.
way down into the weeds.
We're not going to make that
But
decision.
it is a discussion.
It is absolutely
Right.
discussion, but I don't
Okay.
think it's something we need to do tonight.
All right, well, maybe that isn't the best example, but, for example,
I thought they were wanting some decision made.
Well, but we don't need a decision on every aspect of it, Richard, tonight. We can take, I think the big decision is, for me, are we going to hire a firm? Which firm are we going to hire? Question I have for Paul Pastersky is how are we going to pay him? And do we have to go get supplemental funding, or do we have something right? I mean, we got to, these folks are charging us, and I think what is
There's plenty of money in this capital program.
I mean, to get this started, we can make transfers. There's been a number of staffing changes in the finance department that we can make the transfer to the selectmen's expense account, probably. Again, I have an assistant town accountant, assistant HR manager that both left, and they created vacancies during the year, so there's some extra money there.
Yeah, I mean,
As far as paying an interim, we would
well,
pay
the
it right
question
out
is,
of
some of this
seat.
payment is, because of the timing, is fiscal year 19, and some's going to be fiscal year 20.
Well, if we make the commitment in 19, we would use all 19 money.
Okay, all right.
So
That-
even if the contract
That's
is
fine,
signed
I just
19,
want to
the
make sure we
commitment,
know what the heck we're doing here, because we got to pay for it.
So is it a consensus on the board that we can go ahead and start talking to Community Paradigm?
Talking to them to do what, Marie?
Well, I think that there's different ways that they build out this.
So you're saying, put some meat on the bones and get details?
Yes, exactly, because right now there's the cost of advertisement,
You're
what is
not-
that really going to
fine,
be?
So you're not authorized to sign a contract with them? but go-
No,
Just
no.
go talk.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
I mean, technically, I have to sign the contract. But no, yeah, I mean, I think you need to get a contract proposal that's a little firmer than what you got.
But we're not authorizing a contract to be signed at this point.
No, but you're authorizing me to go ahead and
So
talk
I'm
to
going to ask point blank, is there a motion, Marie, then for us to begin discussions with Community Paradigm Associates as our town manager search firm?
So moved.
Well, that's different than what you were just saying. Now you're authorizing no other competition. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying you wanted to firm up a proposal a little bit more and see what the costs were.
Well, but we're going to talk with them to firm up the proposal.
Okay, well, it
That's the
sounds
proposal.
like you're already
No, I
hiring a
don't
firm.
intend to, Richard. I don't intend to. What I want to do is have direction to try to firm up an agreement with Community Paradigm, and not, the proposal is not to.
What was the proposal?
It's
What was
not
the
to
motion?
sign a contract.
Begin discussions with Community Paradigm and get the rest of it.
Yeah, that begin discussions. That sounds like you're under a formal contract.
I mean, I guess the way we normally do it is you make a motion to select Community Paradigm to manage the town manager search and authorize the liaison to enter into contract discussions.
Well, that's
Or
what I'm
agreement
saying.
discussions. But you should make the motion
They
to
didn't say they wanted
select
to
them.
do that tonight. That's the reason I
Right,
was questioning it.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping you guys do that. I mean, I
To
don't
what,
want
to enter into contract with?
No, to select them and begin, I mean, if I come back and say the negotiations fell through, then we'll go to the next firm.
Okay.
But I'm looking that you'll accept the recommendation to
Marie,
select
it's
community
your
area.
subcommittee, you make the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, but this is the first time I've seen this.
Oh, I sent all of this through the packet and everything to the whole
Okay, well, I
week.
say, this is the first time
Yeah.
I've actually seen it in writing, so whatever.
Fine, would you prefer to come back?
No,
next
I know, I'm just making a statement. I just don't like to see the horse getting wild here.
I had the chance to read these things over
Yeah.
the weekend, so.
Yeah, I sent everybody the
right, they were
packet
all in
last.
packet.
I thought you
Wednesday or
said you were going to
Thursday.
deliver the packet tonight.
No, I printed out one, but
Okay.
didn't it go in the,
Yes.
yeah, it went into
Yeah.
the.
Well, I just had stuff going on the weekend. Excuse me for having a life, you know.
Make your commitment, Richard.
Do you want to make a commitment then to go with Paradigm?
Short of signing a contract.
Well, you are signing the contract.
No, I'm not signing a contract. I specifically said, not signing a contract, Richard. I want
Anyways,
to,
there's no way anyone's signing a contract with the gentleman because he's not available for 2 weeks.
so how are you going to even negotiate
Because
with him?
I can discuss with him in email. He said he will email with me, even though he's out of state right now.
Right, so where do you want to go? Where do you guys want to go? I mean, what do you want to?
Well, I'd like to have it move forward, and they seem like a good choice. They offer some of the main services we're going to need, which is their proprietary database, which may be more predatory in case they may steal some of from another town. But, yeah, I think we should start. The price seems reasonable.
Richard, what do you want to do now?
I just want somebody to explain what we are doing, because I've heard two statements. Because
No,
if you
I
pick
don't
this
believe
firm,
you.
then we are in negotiations with this firm. There is no other firm.
Okay,
Correct,
Is
and
that
that's
your
the-
intention?
Yes.
Okay,
But
fine.
not to sign a contract.
Right, put the motion on. Well, we theoretically have signed a contract. We haven't signed a contract, but we said all the other firms we're not even considering.
At this
Is that
point,
correct?
but unless this falls through. We're not saying,
Okay. Is that
we're
the
not saying
motion?
they're unacceptable.
Is that the motion, though?
The motion is to enter into negotiations with Community Paradigm, that's what we said,
Only.
only.
Okay,
Yes.
For the
good.
purposes of identifying what would take to sign a
Okay, I'm ready to
contract.
vote.
Second.
Motion's
No,
made.
it's
and
already
seconded.
seconded.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
No, I said, oh.
No.
You're a little-
No.
I lost track
Bill
of
Lowe
where it was.
seconded the motion.
I thought it was already
Bill's good.
seconded.
He seconded it.
Well, now we can have discussion, right?
Yes, now we can have discussion. You guys gave it
I'm ready
to
to vote.
us to
Discussed
do
it.
the, oh, I thought you were
The only
asking
one
No,
for
I
who's gotta-
discussion.
understand what
Only
you're
one's
talking
gotta
about now.
get
You've been
this
jibber jabbering back and
Richard.
forth. I don't,
We've been discussing it for the last 15 minutes.
Right, okay.
yeah, illegal parliamentary procedure, Chair.
You know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do,
Yeah.
Richard.
Can I use both of you?
Is there any other comments? Okay, so is a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Vote passes 5-0. So you're going to come back and tell us where they are, Marie,
Right.
okay?
And the request is that by the next meeting, everyone decide what they feel the important groups are to have in a town manager search committee.
Right.
And
I've already-
like
I know.
Tom's now saying, maybe instead of member of charter committee, you'll want energy and sustainability.
You can keep the
Or-
same person, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can keep the same
You should keep the
person.
same person.
So whatever people want, make up your own list, and then we'll sit and we'll vote and get that done next time.
Okay, so Debbie,
Because we know, whoever we choose as a group here, this can still move forward.
so the town manager search ought to be on our agenda, old business agenda for each of our next few meetings. Debbie, okay? So
And then,
we're discussing
in
that.
terms of this vision committee, I mean, the goal of it, it really isn't to look at what the committees and boards are saying. It's really about the employees, to identify some of the things that they may see, that they, you know, although Stephen was probably the best town manager they ever had, there might be some things that they say, in the next town manager, this is what would really be helpful for our department, because this is where we see we're going. We found that if we had a little more direction, guidance from a town manager around these areas, it would help us. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that kind of information, not so much what committees and so forth have to say. It's really about departments.
I think within your subcommittee, you can go do that, and the question is, how do we use the information you get, maybe subject to a more general discussion.
Yeah,
Okay?
and once we get
But
that
I don't see any
condensed-
reason
Yeah.
to bar you from going and doing that as part of your subcommittee, Stephen.
Many communities do a public forum
Mhm.
at the start of the process. I've seen about what they do. They go to the town.
We did.
I agree.
We
Yeah,
had one.
and say,
Mhm.
and then it's like that scene from Mary Poppins where
want filming rights.
Michael and
Yes.
Jane write the
Yes.
list of what they want in a nanny, and that's what you get.
And then we burn it in the fireplace.
Right, yeah.
So, yes, we'll get that, but this will give us some kinds of issues to bring up at the public forum too, you know, and
Yeah.
guide us, because we want to have the right questions when we bring people in for interviews.
And you authorized us to go ahead and set up a public forum with our Vision Quest. We won't call it we'll call it the Vision Quest.
And don't scold me if I don't use your format for questioning you, so.
Yes.
Okay.
The answer
No,
is.
I won't go
Go
Okay,
ahead.
all right, sounds
Go ahead.
good. That was-
I may have
thank
some
you, that's all
old
we were
questions that I
looking for.
answer of
Okay,
managers. so.
It's like pulling teeth here.
And everybody, please save their purple folders, so when the resumes come in,
Well, more
put
stuff
it in
to
your
go.
purple
sure.
folders.
Okay, fine, thank you. We're going to move on to the
Thank you.
next item, which is our final item, which is a discussion of raised crosswalks at Blueberry Hill, Bliss and Blueberry Hill.
So I'll just keep this brief because these guys have been waiting for a while. We're getting another grant, and from Safe Routes to School, and part of the build out is a raised crosswalk across Bliss Road by Blueberry Hill. There's an installation of a sidewalk right out here. Installation of a sidewalk between Grassy Gutter and the intersection of Blueberry, and then when it crosses Blueberry, it'll be a raised crosswalk. Based on the discussion we've had, Mass DOT has gotten wind of the fact that we are extremely satisfied with one and extremely dissatisfied with the other.
That's mild.
Yeah. Although, like I said, I think that there's a lot of people who support even the one out here on Grassy Gutter, but you just don't hear from them as often.
That's the ones that try to run over traffic coming off
Right.
Grassy Gutter. I think that's the supporters.
So they want to know, do we want to proceed with a raised crosswalk? And I think one of the things we talked about is softening the one out here. I say we got a quote for that. It's not, it doesn't include moving drainage, and it's still a pretty big number. But I think we just want some guidance from the board about, do we want to pursue another raised crosswalk at that location, which I think would be good. And then make sure that as we develop the design for it, we include things like, make sure that because we look at the approach of the road and the drainage structures before we finish design and put it out to bid, we've learned that lesson the hard way. And then, like the reflecting signs that we have on this one, build that into the spec and things like that. I mean, I think these are all things we've learned, and I think the DPW is clear on how we can do it better. But if the board is not interested in another raised crosswalk, then we'll tell Mass DOT we're changing the scope, and then we just won't do them going forward. Although, I think that would be short-sighted. I think they are effective. They do slow traffic down. I think that there are areas that still have challenges for pedestrians that could benefit from these. Again, I think that the one out here just didn't work, just from a physical standpoint. And so how do we learn the lessons from that? But I'll turn it, yes or no, another raised crosswalk
So
or not?
Stephen, my question is, what problem do we have that we're trying to solve with a raised crosswalk? I mean, here in Meriwether, you said it was on the top 5 list, it was of intersection. Do we have that issue there?
I'd have to go back to the complete streets plan, but I know that they were going down the list of ranked areas from that complete streets plan that was presented a couple of years ago. So I think that you have a lot of volume, you have speed, you have heavy pedestrian, pointing out it's over here, you have heavy pedestrian activity.
This is where the existing one is, right out here now. There is a crosswalk out there.
There's a crosswalk out there now. This will be a raised crosswalk. It is a heavily traveled pathway for school children as well.
You'd be on Bliss?
What, is it on Bliss towards Blueberry, or is it Bliss up near Grassy Gutter?
No, it's Bliss. That's only a stone's throw away. No, it will be on Bliss, crossing over to Blueberry.
So it's right here, so people as they're coming out of here,
You can't go left out of this driveway. So no. But if you're coming towards the school from the shops,
you can't do that, Marie.
Okay. So you'll be coming from the shops, it's
Yes.
right up there,
Yes.
at that corner,
Yes.
okay.
You're going to get a engineering drawing out on this, cross
Yeah,
sections and
I
et
think we
cetera?
just need to know we want to proceed with it, that we're not forever banned on raised crosswalks, and if we are, we'll take a different approach. Like I said, I think that they have shown themselves, especially over by Town Hall, to be very beneficial to pedestrians, especially where there is a lot of school traffic, and that one is heavily traveled, obviously, for Center.
What, I know you're saying a lot of statements, but what can you contribute to that? I haven't seen any difference. Seriously. The most effective thing that you did down there was put up the push button with the flashing signs. That really is the most effective one, because traffic usually was pretty slow going through that particular zone because of the visual congestion.
I mean, I drive that every single day.
I do too.
And at school time, and I would say the traffic does move a lot more. Traffic moves more slowly in a positive way, much more deliberately. There were people who would blast down Long Meadow Street, go around the car line for the Montessori school, and just not. Now they are forced to slow down. And like I said, the crossing guard there could give you firsthand. Now, is he out there clicking or radar gunning things? No, but anecdotally, which I value, he'll tell you that it's a lot safer. In fact, and the parents that I've talked to you about it, all say that it's a lot safer.
So Stephen, you asked the question. My answer is, if the crosswalk was across Blueberry and was raised, I'd be all for it, because that's clearly where the kids walk, and if you're going to cross Bliss, it would seem to me you want it up where all the high school kids cross every day for the sports fields, as opposed to here. I bet you can't count a dozen kids crossing there, because they either cross at Grassy Gutter or they cross up top, is my sense. So that's my feedback.
So it's good feedback, and actually one of the things as a part of our PVPC study of the triangle is to actually reduce the number of crosswalks between Russell Field and the high school property, and really use this as the primary pathway for students to travel.
Yeah, but you see, high school kids aren't going to, because their locker rooms let them out up there. That's where they cross.
But if we cover the holes in the fence where they go in now,
you're just going to be encouraging jaywalks.
but at least we give them a safer pathway. There are too many crosswalks in that stretch, and so we want to reduce the number, and this would be a primary.
So I went to a college, and what they used to do when everything came out is the first thing they do is not put down any pavement. They throw stuff down and they watch where people walked. And after they found where people walked, then they paved it. And I think that's the sense of what this is here. You can put a crosswalk where you want people to go. They're going to go where they go instead of where you want them to go. And I think we're better off putting
Pedestrian stuff is not like pathways across, greens. It's
high school kids who are fearless and who are,
But if they get detention,
invulnerable.
Because they didn't follow the rules, I mean, there are ways to enforce it.
Yeah, but I think we should talk to the various stakeholders to see, and the crossing guards, to see whether this should be up at Grassy Gutter. Because I'm not sure how many people really cross at the Blueberry section, because that's where so.
It's already been, and I say it's already been designed. We've done the analysis. We have talked to, Carl Mazzaferro has talked to the schools. He's been working with the Safe Routes to School. They gave us the grant based on the solidness of the plan. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. It is a good spot for it, just like the Complete Streets plan laid out on a data-driven basis where these things should go. Again, is there such an aversion to raised crosswalks that you don't want to see another one? Or do you think we can, if we make it more like the one in front of Town Hall versus the one out here, then it's a good application of it? That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I'm not against raised crosswalks.
But I'm opposed to it on Bliss Road at that location.
I think that I'd rather see more raised crosswalks than not in that area. I think that whole area from where the high school and Grassy Gutter all the way to the triangle, that should be a slow driving zone.
How about a speed zone change, Tom? You in favor of that? Right now, it's posted
I'm
at
just
full
saying
speed.
that if you put those very gradual ones, like...
How about a speed zone change? You want to drop the speed limit?
I'm not saying anything about what the speed should be. That's all done by the state. What I'm saying is that if it was me, I would paint the whole area striped, and I'd put raised crosswalks, because we have a lot of people who should be walking there, and we have students crossing back and forth, and having a few extra raised, my opinion, a few extra raised crosswalks, even at the far end, you know, if people are going from one bank to the other, they should have raised crosswalks going to Triangle.
That's
I cross that way
different
all the
zone,
time.
though, Tom. That's a total different zone.
Well, I just think that there's nothing wrong with them.
Any
But I
incidents-
do have a
Steve,
problem
we're
with the
gonna be
one
here all
that's
night
so
talking
high
about
that
this.
people
Did you
lose
get your answer,
control.
or you didn't get your answer?
I got 1, 2.
You know, I just noticed there's 5 crosswalks in that
Yeah.
two-block area.
One of the, like I said, the PVPC study talks about reducing crosswalks and using this raised crosswalk is to try and channel pedestrian traffic to that location. So, all right, well,
I would say that if you're gonna reduce this to like one crosswalk, I wouldn't mind seeing a raised one, but you know what works also is just putting that cone in the middle of the road that says stop. But I'm not opposed to the raised crosswalk, as long as it's not like.
like
this
that
thing
one,
out
got it, okay,
Yeah.
fine. I've got my direction.
We never want to see one that size again.
All right, is any other comments about the crosswalks? Hearing none. Okay, I think that, are there any subcommittee reports? We've talked all about that stuff. I think we're good. We're gonna have a short executive, maybe a long executive session, to approve minutes and for discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining. And personnel issue, other personnel issues, I believe. Right?
And litigation.
And litigation. So there's like 2 or 3 check marks there, Debbie. Okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion
Not to return to open session?
No, to return to open session.
Oh, it is to return to open
To
session?
vote on the DPW.
Oh, okay, and to return to open session.
Okay, so a motion to move to executive session, and we will return to open session afterwards.
Okay, is there a second? Kevin, roll call vote?
I made the motion.
I seconded
Mary
it.
seconded.
Okay, and roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. Again, there's an election June 11th, and we will see you here 2 weeks from tonight, which is June 17th. Thank you very much.